Coming up this week on the Markcast. Well, as we approach XFL 2023 Week 3, watch as gameplay slowly improves. TV ratings Week 2 could be better, could be worse, depending on who you ask. I have a question for you. In the words of Maximus Decimus Meridius, are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
But seriously, I do want to know, are we having fun? Are we enjoying this version of the XFL? Is this better or worse than we thought? Lots of things to discuss, asking a wide variety of people, going to get different answers depending on who we talk to. First and foremost, we asked Tom Luginbill, historic XFL 2001 winning coach with the LA Extreme, broadcast XFL 2020, and now is back in the saddle again. Tom, are you having fun?
I'm having a blast with this. I think it's a tremendous amount of fun. It's always been fun. It was fun in 2000, in 2001. It was fantastic prior to the pandemic, and now it's just as fun now. I'm really interested to see, because I think over the next 2, 3 to 4 weeks, you'll really start to see kind of who made the right decisions in terms of personnel. You got to stay healthy. Obviously, you got small rosters, but like the quarterbacks will really start to emerge. The teams and everybody right now is struggling in the offensive line, but that will start to clean itself up. And that's the stuff I'm looking forward to over the next 2 to 3 weeks.
And then we deep dive preview all of the XFL matchups this week with Mark Drumheller over at Yahoo Sports. Mark's tracking all the bets, the over-unders. Mark, are you having fun? Are we Bears, Team Bears, too much vacation, too much football at this point, or are we good?
No, I'm good. I mean, listen, I'll take all the football I can get, so it doesn't bother me none. And like I said, I think, the league has done a good job of, promoting it. And it's just the first couple weeks, like I said, typically, there's going to be some continuity issues. I think we're seeing that with the offenses and stuff, but I think the product will get better each year. And that was one of the things that, in 2020 that we missed out on, after 5 weeks, it got shut down. So we didn't see kind of the end product at the end of the year, like we did in the USFL in the spring.
And someone I can tell you who is very much not having fun is friend of the show, Chris Maathuis. Chris is our Warzone correspondent who is at Cashman Field last week. Chris, are you having fun watching the XFL this season?
That was the mentality. I mean, it was rain, it was pouring. Let's go have some fun, because this game is not fun. So let's go have some fun and watch something else and cover something else. And that was kind of, well, you saw how many people left at Cashman Field. So and even when we're sitting there, we're thinking, wow, this is just too bad. I mean, they paint the grass, it looks crappy still.
And then not just XFL talk on the podcast, back to our CFL roots as well. Farhan Lalji, longtime friend, hasn't been on since the Grey Cup. Had the big report last week, McLeod Bethel-Thompson heading to the New Orleans Breakers. Bryan Scott now is heading north to the Argonauts. What is happening? We are talking with Farhan, getting all of this spring football, alternative football, all the talent wars, transitions, everything like that.
So right now, it doesn't affect what you're seeing today, because the players that have been in the CFL and have earned starters money, those guys are generally in their late 20s. So the NFL is in the rearview mirror for them. So they know what a good league this is and how much money they can make here. So they don't want to go to the USFL and the XFL in most cases, right? The guys that are going into those leagues are younger, and the NFL dream is still there, right? So they go and they think we can play for a shorter period of time, make whatever money, stay active, and then be available if there's an opportunity in the NFL, right?
And then say it ain't so. We are building bridges, new beginnings here on the Markcast. New friend, and I think he said partner of the Markcast, Cody Fajardo, your starting quarterback for the Montreal Alouettes. Viva les Alouettes. Cody, coming on the show. Do we get off the block? Are we no longer blocked, Cody? Are we having fun?
Like I said early on in the interview, you guys do a lot of great things for the league and bring a lot of awareness, a lot of eyeballs to this league. And so to be an advocate of that and to be an ally to you guys as well, I think we're having a great working relationship. Definitely starts today. Let's start it out. So you guys aren't blocked anymore, and I'm excited to see everything down the stretch, and hopefully we can get on this. I can get on your guys' show again, and we can continue to talk ball.
Big time show back in the studio this week. Hope you enjoy. Hey guys, welcome to the Markcast. Reed here. Thank you all so much. It's been a crazy last couple weeks. Last time I was here, we were talking to ESPN's Kevin Seifert, previewing XFL, week 1, previewing the kickoff, everything else. Have another ESPN broadcaster on today. We have Tom Luginbill. Really appreciate, everyone coming on the show, all of our guests, everything else, you guys watching. Patience. We had the live shows while I was gone and all of that other stuff. But now we are back here in the mothership in the Markcast headquarters. Should be fun. Big time show for you guys today. Lots of guests I'm really excited about. First and foremost, Tom Luginbill coming on of ESPN and the XFL broadcast team. Tom, historic name in the lores of XFL. Tom was with the LA Extreme back in 2001, won the $1 million trophy game with the XFL back then. Tom with the broadcast team back in 2020. And now here we are again in 2023. Tom, lots of thoughts on the XFL, quality of gameplay, talking DC Defenders. Tom was at the Cashman field game last week. Going to be talking Defenders again as St. Louis goes into Audi Field this weekend. Really appreciate Tom coming on the show. And then full 4-game breakdown, everything you need to know, the betting odds, everything with Yahoo Sports. Mark Drumheller coming on. Been trying to get Mark on for a long time, talking XFL. Really appreciate his expertise. So super, super appreciative of Mark coming on. And then I had to reach back out Chris Maathuis, the KLAS down there in Las Vegas, sports director there. Chris was, on the field in the muckety muck there in Cashman Field last week. I had to get Chris's thoughts. Chris, remember, was a little hesitant about the XFL in Vegas and, didn't really know what was going to work out with that. Wanted to get Chris's follow-up thoughts today, after this week, after Chris was part of, just a really memorable, more or less memorable than Lemongate. I'm not really sure, but the Cashman Field game, the Dragons are going in there this weekend. So we'll see how that all works out. And then, like I said, lots of CFL stuff. Really appreciate Farhan coming on today. Spending a lot of time with Farhan. He's a busy guy covering all of the CFL and all the movement stuff he does. And just thought it was a really cool conversation. Farhan had the story about McLeod going to the Breakers. And now, like I said, we see, friend of the show, Bryan Scott here heading up to the Argonauts. And, we're getting movement. And so, is this the start of things to come? Is this the beginning of the end? What is happening there? Really appreciate that. And then truly a day I never thought would come, although I did have a good inkling when Cody Fajardo, famously, it wasn't really like a feud, but just like Cody, we got blocked by Cody one day on Twitter, I think just in a barrage of stuff. And then it's really kind of morphed into whatever this has been the last, 2.5 years of just kind of jokes and stuff. When Cody got signed to the Alouettes here a couple weeks ago, I thought, well, this is my end because I have zero relation with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Have tried, a couple times, but we do have a very good relationship with the Montreal Alouettes team over there and everybody. And I thought, this is my end. Reached out, got Cody Fajardo on the Markcast. I promise you, if you are a CFL fan, you do not want to miss this. It's like 20, 22 minutes. Cody, passionate guy, ton of thoughts, energy, sat down, was all in. That's all we can ask for. And I think we have a new friend of the podcast. I'll talk more at the end of the show, but I think we have a new friend of the podcast with Cody. So hope you guys enjoy today. 5 guests. Should be a good show again next week. Reaching out to some other people. I think Mike Mitchell said he's got wants to go all in next week on XFL. So that could be fun. And then I have a big time CFL guest. If you see my shirt, it's a BC Alliance playoff shirt. Might be a spoiler for who I'm taping that. Probably as you listen to this today, I'll be taping that. So could be a good interview again next week. I'll check back in at the end of the show. Thanks so much. And I almost forgot, check back in at the end of the show, and we will be announcing the winners of our Bryan Scott signed football and the spring league jerseys that we have. Now heading to the CFL, this thing has gone, it's like stonks, buy low, sell high, ride the wave. Bryan now top of the world, heading up to the CFL, going to the Toronto Argonauts. That was reported and then officially announced this week from the team. So check back in. We'll be giving away the Bryan Scott ball. Maybe someone north of the border wants this now. Maybe this is a valuable asset there for your Canadian football memorabilia. But check back in at the end. We'll be giving this away and everything else next. Well, it's a good day when I can bust out my LA Extreme 01 XFL jersey here. Talking, I do my, I do some, work here behind the scenes. Got Tom Luginbill here. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. So I'm going to match you here. How about this?
Oh, look at that. That's hot.
Yeah. What do you think, huh?
I like that. Looking good. Sign.
Old school. Man, I love that jersey. I was joking with somebody the other day. They're like, do you still have stuff? I'm like, oh, yeah, I've got the $1 Million Game hat. I've got the $1 Million Game shirt. Got a championship ring. I still wear, like, a lot of the sweats that we have. And I still wear them to this day, man.
I would wear that championship ring every day, all the time. I would never take that out. That would be right next to my wedding ring.
I haven't worn it yet. I haven't worn it for a game. We were 2 weeks in, and my producer was like, do you want to do anything with that? I'm like, do what with it? He goes, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know either. We'll figure it out.
Well, you have I think that's a cool, that's a good humble brag. I think that's fine. I think you can bust that out at some point. So we're here today, Tom, talking, we're week 3 previewing kind of, XFL football here. Tom was with the, DC Vipers last week, and now this week it's going to be St. Louis. I think this is kind of the most anticipated matchup, and we can get into that, St. Louis, the battle of the undefeateds against DC. But how is life going for you right now? Welfare check, XFL 3.0, you're back again.
It's going good, man. It's a lot of fun. I mean, for me, it's a lot of juggling because I still have my recruiting duties at the high school level, and I've got to travel for those at times for camps and combines and, studying tape of high school kids, and at the same time kind of getting my work in and prepping for XFL games. The good news is unlike when we broadcast college football games, and depending on what week it is, we could have any one of 25 teams. You start to kind of get to know the teams pretty well when you watch the tape, with the limited amount. And then for our crew, for whatever reason, we've had DC for the first 3 weeks of the season. And I've really kind of gotten to know them. And as you mentioned, saw Vegas week 1, Seattle week 1, or Vegas week 2, Seattle week 1. I'm going to see St. Louis this week. I'm having a blast with this. I think it's a tremendous amount of fun. It's always been fun. It was fun in 2000, in 2001. It was fantastic prior to the pandemic, and now it's just as fun now. I'm really interested to see, because I think over the next 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, you'll really start to see kind of who made the right decisions in terms of personnel. You got to stay healthy. Obviously, you got small rosters, but like the quarterbacks will really start to emerge. The teams and everybody right now is struggling in the offensive line, but that will start to clean itself up. And that's the stuff I'm looking forward to over the next 2 to 3 weeks.
It's crazy. And, I was been excited to talk to you ever since the broadcast crews were announced. And I thought, well, let's wait. Let's get some games under our belt here. Because obviously you could do a whole, segment just on stories from the past and everything. But how crazy is it, to think to be back again in 2020 and then with everything, but now to be back again and just have this to be such a cool kind of keynote or book note of your life as part of everything you've been a part of?
Yeah, I mean, it's unique. I've had some really cool runs. I was a part of the coaching staff at NFL Europe that Kurt Warner was on. I've coached in the Arena Football League. I've worked in the NFL as a scout. I've had a pretty eclectic career, and then, moved out of coaching and scouting and into broadcasting. And I never would have thought, first of all, I never had any plans to enter into broadcasting. That kind of happened by accident. But to think that, the XFL would have come back, 20 years later or 19 years later in 2020, and then now again. And to be honest with you, man, I really, really felt for the league in 2020 because it was rolling along and it was good football. The rules were fantastic. It was going to work. All of the broadcast and the presentation problems that we had in 2001 were corrected. All right. And so the football and the rules only enhanced that. We were starting. I remember the last game that I did in week 5 was at Houston, and that was the first weekend that they opened the upper deck on both sides of the stadium because there was demand for it, right? And, it just started to kind of get its groove, and then boom, the pandemic hit. And so I'm really glad that DJ and our chairwoman, Danny Garcia, brought this thing back to life because I think they could see it worked. It was working, and it can work. And it's a great viable option in the spring.
We cover all the leagues on our show, and we do USFL and CFL and stuff. And there's been a lot of, with the hub and Birmingham for the USFL and XFL going to markets. And I thought like the DC game, for example, week 1 with the Lemon Gate and everything, and the fans, like that demonstrated the need to have passionate people that have bought in, that are there, even if it's not, we're at capacity yet, we're building towards it, but you have people there that are invested in the product that are really excited.
There's no question, and especially in DC at Audi Field, because it's the perfect venue for a league like this. Seats about 22,000 fans. I think it will be close to capacity on Sunday in our game at 1 p.m. on FX. Really good turnout for a night game in week 1. And again, their fans care. They're passionate about it. St. Louis at their home games in 2020, and I think now in 2023, going to be very, very strong. Seattle was up against a very, very highly ranked NHL game that was right across the street last Thursday. I think that hurt their capacity to some degree. San Antonio seems to be excited about it. So listen, I think as with everything, if you put a winning product on the field, people will pay attention. They'll want to come. They'll want to be a part of something. What's made DC's fans unique is they look at it like an experience, right? They're there, not too dissimilar to what the XFL was in 2001, where it's like a rock concert with a football game going on. And that's how those fans view it, and that's how they conduct themselves, which makes the environment so good.
What I liked about it as well is, you had the controversy, it's not the XFL salt really, all this lemon stuff, but the game itself was good, right? Yeah. It wasn't like it was this crap game and then, hey, we're doing the wave and we're kind of like doing, I've been to wrestling events where it's crap and we're kind of, you're entertaining yourself. No, this is a good game and we're part of this experience, and it's all a positive, right?
Yeah, the thing that was cool about it is it just happened to be circumstance, but when the pick 6 occurred in week 1 for DC, that was in the end zone where the beer snake was. So you already had everybody all upset because they dismantled the beer snake. So now the fans are all bent out of shape, and then something good happened for their team. And when that happened, everything changed in that game. So it just goes to show you how momentum and energy and atmosphere can make an impact on a team.
I'm Seattle, and like you said, we are, I do think XFL is, a lot was made with 2020 and the attendance. I do think it's hard right now. The Kraken are really hot, right? I mean, we were just watching the Blues game last night and taking the Bruins here to, 5-5 and then losing against that game last Thursday. But, a good market. Is Seattle better than they should be right now at 0-2 with the staff that everyone has over there?
Yes, their issue for 2 weeks in a row have been self-inflicted wounds, turning the ball over, making bad decisions and poor plays at the wrong time during the game. And then when they have, the other teams capitalized on it. I think that's the thing that has really hurt them, because you could make an argument that's one of, if not the most experienced coaching staffs in the entire league. But it just goes to show you, coaches don't have any eligibility left. So once you get on the field and you've coached through the week, the players are going to have to make plays. But you know what? We've seen this with just about every team across the league, even from the 2-0 teams. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. St. Louis isn't lighting the world on fire for the first 3 quarters of the first 2 weeks. Now, they've really made their hay in the fourth quarter. Orlando's really struggled with mistakes and turnovers and poor quarterback play. Seattle's turnovers have just absolutely killed them. And so really the teams that have minimized mistakes early in the season when it's hard to do, because this is the time of the year in a league like this where you are really exposed up front in the offensive line. Everybody is across the board. 5 weeks of camp, no preseason games, and you're taking the group of players, the one position group that needs the most cohesion and time to gel, and you're throwing them out there. And they're at a huge disadvantage, which in my opinion is why DC's approach in all of this was really, really smart. And that was, they're going to run a college offense, and they're going to have a mobile designated runner at quarterback, and they're going to force defenses to have to defend quarterback run, which in professional football, those guys aren't accustomed to doing. And then it takes pressure off of your offensive line. If you watched the Vegas DC game last week, for the first half of that game when the weather was good and D'Eriq King hadn't come into the game yet, Vegas was teeing off on defense, man. They were playing with confidence. They were pinning their ears back. They were making negative plays. They forced that turnover on the 2-yard line that led to the Vegas touchdown. And then all of a sudden, the game plan offensively changed when D'Eriq King came in. In the final 2 quarters of that game, Vegas was lost on defense. They were hesitant. They were wondering if they were right. They were guessing. And it put them in a real conflict of assignment. And right now in the league, DC's the only team that can do that to any other team because of how they structured the quarterback position.
Yeah, it just seems like, just to finish on Seattle, it just seems like they're really allergic to running the ball. That Gene Jones really doesn't, like we're putting DiNucci, and I love DiNucci, and I think he was another story. Could have been like the AJ McCarron, right? I'm kind of rebuilding, and I'm here. Yeah. And, it's only 2 weeks in. DC's weird. I'm already seeing for Teamu's head, and let's go with D'Eriq King, or let's go with Dungy or whatever. Like, is the Teamu excelled in 2020, didn't play great in the USFL, now is back. And they're fine, serviceable as a two-pronged attack there, but it doesn't seem like Teamu's lighting the world on fire.
No, he's not. He's been very streaky in terms of accuracy. He's missed open players at throws that you should make in professional football. He's just got to become more consistent, but you can't put him on the bench because you need both of them, at least until a defense can shut down quarterback run and force D'Eriq King to throw the ball and move the ball through the air, which DC hasn't had to do with D'Eriq King yet. So you do need both of them. There does need to be a 1-2 punch. There obviously is a concerted effort in DC to run the football with Abram Smith and really with Raquel as well. They've got 2 running backs that are really good, plus D'Eriq King, plus Jordan Ta'amu. They just got to get more consistency in the passing game from Jordan. And if they do, then they're going to become really, really dangerous. And I think, June Jones knows that there's opportunities to run the football, but the run and shoot's never been about running the football. And so that's just kind of who they are.
Yeah. In the nicest way possible, what was the experience like at Cashman Field last week?
Really unique. It was interesting because, and I give Vegas fans credit because the thing only holds 9,000 fans. And I'm not exaggerating when I say there was just under 7,000 there prior to the weather coming into play. Then it obviously became sparse, but a lot of the fans stayed and just moved under the overhang in what would have been the corner behind home plate of the baseball configuration. It's a difficult venue to broadcast in. It's a difficult surface because it had just been laid down, and then you add weather on top of it. We saw what that did to the kicking game with both kickers. But by and large, most of the every down players were able to keep their footing, and the surface didn't become as big of a deal as I think a lot of people were thinking that it might. It's just tough when you don't have any type of seating or structure on one end zone and the opposite sideline. It's a one-sided fan structure or fan experience, which I would say probably isn't ideal. But the fans were into it. I'll give them that. It was cold. It was windy. It was super rainy. Our booth was leaking like crazy, and so. It's part of it, man, and that's where they're at right now, and it's unfortunate, but that's a team that's 0-2 that's kind of taken the same route as Seattle. They've self-inflicted wounds, pick sixes, turnovers. Just you can't get out of your own win. It's hard to win football games when you do that.
Yeah, I mean, it really seems like if it wasn't for that fumble by DC, they're near the going the other way, the Vipers wouldn't have had really any offense at all the whole game.
No, they were really struggling to get any continuity and any rhythm. In long term, Brett Hundley is probably their best solution, but he's only been there for a couple of weeks, and I think they can do some of the quarterback run stuff with him that DC is doing if they choose to employ that. If they could have a very similar approach to DC's if they wanted to use Luis Perez and Brett Hundley in similar fashion to Jordan and De'Aaron King, and probably have a lot of success with it.
It was surprising to me, DC, and we have Greg Williams, kind of this like vaunted defense, and I think that's living up to it. How do you think that the Vipers, with Woodson and everyone else over there, it felt like they're also kind of doing a good job on that regard on the other side of the ball?
For Vegas?
Yeah,
they were until quarterback run came into play.
Yeah.
And then everything changed for them. It was really hard for them they were guessing. They had guys that were hesitant because they weren't sure of their keys and the backfield action. You don't know if you're giving it or if you're keeping it. No. Again, same problems that they are created at the college level. DC is the one team that can look like and run a college offense in professional football in this league. The thing with Greg Williams and DC on defense, they do so many things post-snap that are going to look vastly different than what they look like they're lining up in pre-snap, that it's creating a lot of problems for opposing quarterbacks. It's forcing them into bad decisions. It's confusing them. We've seen it for 2 weeks in a row. It'll be interesting to see if we see it versus A.J. McCarron, who's far more experienced. And the St. Louis offense, by the way, is of the offenses in the league that I've seen, it's the most ultra pro style, multiple under center, shotgun, shifts, motions, tight ends, check with me's at the line of scrimmage, a lot of pro football principles in their offense. And that hasn't necessarily been the case with the two offenses that DC and Greg Williams have faced yet. So going to be interesting to see that chess match as well.
In terms of A.J. McCarron, is that by and large the best story thus far out of the season, and just his story about playing for his kids and all that?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's not too dissimilar to Tommy Maddox and his story in 2001 when I had him in Los Angeles. Tommy Maddox was a first-round draft choice, got taken by the Denver Broncos. They've got John Elway, never really gets a chance to be the guy, ends up in New York, and then ends up out of the league. And he wanted to play football so bad that he ended up going and playing in the Arena Football League. And, some of the conversations he and I had, leading up to the draft that year were, why are you doing this? You're independently wealthy. You did a really good job with your first round money. And that was back in the 90s. So we're not talking like life altering money, but he really didn't need to play football. And he was like, I love it. I want a chance to prove that I wasn't a bust, and I'd love for my family and my kids to see me play. I love that. I appreciate that. I think that's what this league is all about. And it's about opportunity. It's about more, there's going to come a time where A.J. McCarron's kids are going to be in high school or college, and they're going to be scrolling through their phone, or they're going to be looking on the internet, and they're going to see a picture with them as little kids with their dad after a game, and their dad's in a football uniform. That doesn't happen for most people, and it's going to mean something. And I think that's pretty cool.
Is St. Louis, undefeated? I think both St. Louis and DC maybe are the standings make them look a little bit better than they are, right? We talked DC facing certain St. Louis. Are they just getting lucky at the end? Is Beck doing things? Is AJ excelling? How do you put them the success on their side?
Well, they were more consistent offensively earlier in the game this past week than they had been in week one. I mean, if you remember in week one versus San Antonio, they just couldn't even get a sniff, couldn't move the football effectively. Then their running back got hurt, who's a really good player, hoping to see him back. But I'll say this. I think that we always hear coaches say you got to finish, right? Don't look at the scoreboard. Just keep playing. Go out there, execute. Don't worry about what the opponent's doing. They are a picture-perfect form of doing just that. They just hang around like a dirty penny, man. And then all of a sudden, if there's an opportunity to make a play, they've been able to make some of those plays, which I think is really cool. And it just goes to show that, some of the rules now in the XFL keep you in the game when you think you're out of the game. A 4th and 15 if you want to go for it. The ability to go for 3 instead of 1 after a touchdown changes your entire outlook. You kind of have this mindset in the back of your head that, well, no matter what happens, even if it looks like we're down double digits, we're really not down double digits. We could be down 1 score. So we'll see.
I would say the rules are in favor if you're a coach, unlike maybe Terrell Buckley, that doesn't take advantage. If you take advantage of the rules that you have at your disposal, I think maybe you can. It is a closer game than maybe it could be.
Yeah, I think the one thing that we haven't seen, the challenge come into play yet, at least in the games that I've had, and I'm not too sure with the others. We haven't seen a challenge come in where a coach said, hey, listen, you guys screwed up that call and we want you to challenge it, and then have it be reversed, right? And have it help the team that had gotten hurt based on the call, and now they get helped based on the call. It's coming. I think we're going to continue to see that. The challenge with the challenge is that you have to have enough eyes on the sideline or in the press box to see a review of that thing quickly to be able to tell the coach, hey, coach, challenge this. We're going to get this back. I promise you we're going to get this back. But it's not always easy from a timing perspective to get that. So you got to be ultra dialed in when those moments come to be able to be ready to pull the trigger.
Yeah, I think there was one in Seattle, I think, that they wanted last week that they wanted to challenge, or one of the spots or something. I've been traveling here after the kickoff game, so I've been trying to watch a lot of this in post-mortem kind of, but that's kind of the last one, like you said, that we've seen. We've seen the conversion, and we've seen the, come from behind and do all that stuff, like with St. Louis against the Browns week 1. So,
let me add one thing too to that. In week 1, if you remember, Derek King had a 45-yard run, and it completely swung the momentum. And they called DC for a holding call that was atrocious. It was terrible. And I called it out on air. This last week leading up to the Vegas game, when we had Coach Barlow on, I asked him, I said, as bad of a call as that was, I said, why didn't you challenge it? And he actually said to me, he goes, you're right, I probably should have. Because it would have gotten them the 45-yard run, put them in, I think, plus territory at like the 15, and momentum was swinging big time, right? But I think sometimes you get so caught up in it. And again, you got to have so many people in your corner that are watching for these things to alert you, because it can't just be on you as the head coach. You're going to need help. But that was an opportunity I thought that was lost for a challenge.
In terms of, just before I let you go here, in terms of the broadcast, and we know in the XFL and the ultra access and being able to hear everything, do you enjoy that, right, as a broadcaster, and being able to kind of we're all kind of included in that world together there?
Yeah, I do, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for the folks that are on the field, because I was on the field in 2020 in my field analyst role that I serve in college football as well, and now being in the booth with it, it's not easy. You're running around, you're chasing, you're trying to get to that guy that just intercepted the ball. You're trying to get to that coach that just called a 4th and 3 conversion, and it backfired on him. And you got to hustle, and you're going to have to ask some tough questions. And the access is fantastic. And then the follow-up is where you've really got to be good, in my opinion. To me, this whole thing is about laying out and listening. And then when you hear something and you can educate the viewer or further what you've heard, then you jump in. But the goal is to let the audio steer the broadcast, whether that's a coach, whether that's a player, whether that's the call going in from the sideline. And to me, our job is to chime in when there are moments, when there are times. I really like to, when I hear a call offensively or defensively, be able to give the viewer an idea of what's coming. All right, this is what you just heard. This is what we can expect to see, so on and so forth. But I love it. I think it makes you a more disciplined broadcaster, because we don't have these elements in college football or in the NFL. You're calling the game from the booth. And now instead you're not. You're reacting and following the bouncing ball, which I think is a little bit different and unique, but also, again, makes you more disciplined.
Well, it's the same, and I watch a lot of, like we were talking before, the Kraken broadcast. Yeah, you have a lot of pontificating about, like, well, I wonder what they're saying. I wonder what's going on there. I wonder what we don't have to wonder here. And you're locked in, and even like in the Vegas thing when the comms were down and like, hey, they're not working, and we're gonna go. We're taking them down, and we're going back. Like it was messy, but at least you knew what was going on. You had a firm grasp of it as a viewer.
Yeah, and a lot of that is on us. Like, we have to do the job of telling you, hey, if you're not hearing it, this is why. And the rule in the league, if they're down on one sideline, you've got to take them away on the other sideline. But for a league of access, when you have comms problems, it kind of really creates a problem for the broadcast, because it's really what we're relying on, right? And I think the other challenge, too, that we've run into a little bit is only one of the quarterbacks is Mike, which is going to be your starting quarterback. So if the other quarterback plays, when he's in the game, you're not going to have audio from him. Right. So when Derek King comes into the game, he's not mic'd. When Brett Hundley came into the game, he's not mic'd. So it kind of limits some of the access you're going to have. So then you kind of fall back on the coaches, more so the players, because the way it works, so the fans know, in order for the mic and the audio to go into the player's helmet from the coach, when they press that button, that also simultaneously sends it over the air live. So we don't get to just turn that on and off. The coach has to press the button in order for us to get it. So we're relying upon that a little bit as well. But if he doesn't press the button, his players aren't going to get it either. So he's got to be disciplined in that regard.
Well, yeah, I mean and that's always good constructive feedback. Like, that's something maybe we can implement or work on, or getting another helmet there set up. But that is an interesting point I didn't think about. So I appreciate that insight.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Well, anything else before I let you go? I appreciate you taking time. You got your coaches' calls and everything later this week, getting ready for the big game this weekend.
Yeah, I'm just excited about it. I think we've got the best contest in the league and the best venue this weekend. I think in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll really start to see teams separate, and it will be based on quarterback play, how an offensive line gels, and whether or not you stay healthy. I mean, that's the whole goal in all of this. You get those three things going in your favor, you're going to have a pretty good football team.
Well, Tom, I appreciate your time. Like I said, that we'll be looking forward to hearing you on the broadcast, and maybe we can get you on here in the future later in the season. But I really appreciate your time today.
You bet, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, I've been wanting to bring back on Mark here for a long time. Busy man over at Yahoo Sports. We tried to get him on, I think, with the XFL draft and then the pre and everything. But I think he's the only man that ever made a supercut of his appearance on the show and posted it so I could share it. I was so appreciative. Mark Drumheller with Yahoo Sports. How are you?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Listen, it's always football season. So, excited about the XFL and what we got going on. And, only 2 weeks in, so we learned a little bit. But, it's going to be really fun to see it kind of kick into high gear over the next couple weeks.
Is it? I'm still working on the theme as we record this part of the show. Is this? Are we Bears, Team Bears? Too much vacation, too much football at this point, or are we good?
No, I'm good. I mean, listen, I'll take all the football I can get, so it doesn't bother me none. And like I said, I think the league has done a good job of promoting it, and it's just the first couple weeks, like I said, like typically, there's going to be some continuity issues. I think we're seeing that with the offenses and stuff, but I think the product will get better each year. And that was one of the things that, in 2020 that we missed out on, like after 5 weeks, it got shut down. So we didn't see kind of like the end product at the end of the year, like we did in the USFL in the spring.
Yeah, it's interesting. The ratings came out, and that was. I mean, it's kind of old news now, but it's hard to compare because we never know what do they want. And it was the same debate we had with the USFL back, and I wanted to get your thoughts, kind of comparing. But they get 600,000 on ESPN2, but when that's doubling what ESPN2 normally gets, I don't know. I mean, that to me feels good, but I don't know what they're expecting.
Yeah, it's tough to tell. I mean, because again, the streaming numbers aren't baked in or whatnot. And it's a little different. USFL has Fox backing them. You know what I mean? So they're probably going to get a little more leniency, and they probably have kind of like a better understanding of, how they need to promote it or whatnot. But I thought one of the things that did jump out at me in week one is I felt like just the online buzz was much better. Like, I felt like people were talking about the league. They were excited about some of the ex-players in there that were either players or coaches, Rod Woodson and Hines Ward and those guys. And Listen, the on the field product will get better as the season goes on, and I think the coaches as well. We talked about the ex coaches. I think that's been a big factor so far. The ex players kind of hopping in there and getting an opportunity. So those things will get better as the season goes on. But I like that the buzz was there. People were kind of talking about it. So I just hope it kind of continues as we get into March, because of course, we got March Madness coming. We got a lot going on in sports. So, they're going to have to hold their own.
Yeah, and it was the same joke I made with the USFL back in the spring. Like, whatever time of year is the best time until it's like, man, the competition's really hard. Like, it's like April was the best time until it was, that damn Stanley Cup playoffs. And now it goes. My question for you, so you were back on USFL, talking that season. You were doing your sports betting stuff. We lamented that USFL not reaching out, working, helping you and kind of doing all that stuff. Here, it was either preseason or week one, XFL retweeting your stuff with Yahoo Sports, talking about that. And I felt, stark difference, right? Are you, and yep. I know it's week 2, so buzz is always going to be more earlier in the season, but are you sensing more buzz XFL with your work versus USFL, the same or different?
I think it's better with the XFL, and some of that just comes from the broadcasting partners, right? Like anytime ESPN's involved, I think people are going to, have it in their face more, and they're going to kind of understand it more. And the other part of it too, Reed, is I think it's important is when the XFL came out in 2020, and when these spring leagues pop up, we hear the same story. We hear, oh, nobody wants this. This will never work. It never worked before. Yada yada yada. But now that it's not going anywhere, right? Like they're going to keep trying, whether it's USFL, whether it's XFL, it's going to be there. And I think people, as the years go on, and it's back now after last spring, right? And, so now they're kind of getting a little bit more comfortable, trusting that it's going to be there maybe, long term. So they're kind of more willing to invest in it. And I think that's part of it too, is when it first pops up, you're kind of like, hey, this is going to be gone in 2 weeks. A lot of people were saying that about the USFL. They made it through the season. Of course, they had their challenges with the hub and the, not having home crowds and all that. It wasn't a perfect product, but it's going to be back again for year 2. And I think as that continues, I think people will just be more open, to the leagues in general and supporting them. Where before it was almost like taboo because they didn't think it would last.
Well, it's almost like, XFL 2020 kind of begat here USFL and Fox being interested in this, but now USFL's success through season 1 now is going back and, like you said, giving more confidence in both USFL and I would have to think if you were okay with USFL confidence level, that combined with, we've talked ad nauseum, Danny and The Rock and everyone else, has to work in that favor as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that, and having 2 leagues throughout the course of the spring, we'll see how that works out this year. Listen, how the individual leagues are going to, how sustainable they'll be, we'll have to see. But that's kind of the exciting part about it. One of the main things, with the XFL the last time it was around is, we did see, rapid development with the players and with the teams and catching continuity. And I think we saw that a little bit in the USFL, but, in the XFL, scoring was up to 25 points per game that final week. It was week 5. You saw offenses like Houston, Tampa Bay, and who was the other? It was Houston, Tampa Bay, and LA. And those teams back in 2020, they were hitting 400 yards, 500 yards per game. By week 5, the offenses were really prolific, averaging over 5 yards per play. We haven't seen that level of offense at this year's version of the of the XFL, but it's still early. So, that's kind of what we have to look forward to as we get through these next couple weeks. You're going to see these teams really start to gel. You're going to see the coaches start to figure out the rules, right, and the conversions and when to be aggressive and when not. I think that's been a big part of, scoring being down. And I think all of it's just going to, lead to a better product. So I think when we talk about the XFL this year and its sustainability, it's going to have to get through March. It's going to have to get through March Madness. But, I'll be interested to see what a product looks like at the end of the year, what the buzz is during the playoffs and, ultimately the championship. And I think that's going to be the telltale sign.
So you over at Yahoo Sports, do a lot of, sports betting analysis, all of that. We're previewing here and kind of that, as well as just kind of the games here, general kind of week 3 preview. What do you make of the slate? We had the weird Thursday game. Now we got Saturday, triple header Sunday. It feels like I was so mad. I sat and I go, I'm going to be able to watch football all day Sunday. I'm very excited. I cannot wait. 10 a.m., just like whatever. And then I forgot I got asked to do this wedding show out in Issaquah.
Oh, no.
So I have to go out and do the wedding show from like 11 to 3. And then maybe I'll get back, and I'll have it up on my phone. But are you thoughts on the weekend slate as a whole? And then we can kind of dive into the games here.
Yeah, I mean, I think, each week as we look at these matchups, we start to peel back the onion on each team, because now you have a little bit more of a basis of, level of competition, like the opponent they played, and you're getting, situations where, teams have played the same team before, right? So you look at St. Louis and DC, both those teams played Seattle. So you can kind of use that as like a comparison. Those different, sort of things. Same thing with Orlando. Orlando and Arlington both played Houston. So it gives you kind of like a barometer as far as level of competition. But I think it's going to be, fun matchups this week. I think Seattle is one of the most polarizing teams so far, because, on paper, they're great, but they turn the ball over like crazy and they give away every game. So, they've definitely been, from a stat perspective, probably the best team in the league, but they can't figure out how to win because they keep turning the ball over. And that's really been the key with a lot of these teams. Like, in 6 of the first 8 games, there's been at least one team that's turned the ball over 3 times. So when you have that kind of turnover variance and that kind of stuff, it just really makes it difficult to kind of figure out, like, hey, is this team really solid, or are they just kind of giving away the games? One of my biggest takeaways, like going into week 2 was, would the teams that turn the ball over a lot be able to clean it up? And we didn't see that with Seattle. Like, they continued to turn the ball over like crazy. We didn't see it with Orlando. Obviously, they have a ton of problems. So I think all those things would be kind of interesting, is like how, the teams improve from a week to week basis. But turnovers has just been huge.
It's funny, yeah, because even like this week they're tweeting out like Sea Dragons, my team like leading the league and like passing yards, and DiNucci's blowing. It's like, yeah, but then he turns the ball over 1,000 times and we can't win the game. Like, I mean, it's Sea Dragons definitely better on paper than in the standings right now.
And it's not even just like, it's fumbles, it's special teams fumbles. It's not just the quarterbacks, like it's everybody. And I really think that a lot of that has contributed to the lower scoring that we're seeing, right? Like, teams only averaged, I think it was 17 points per game this week, down from 20 the first week. Obviously week 1, we had a ton of defensive touchdowns, so that played into it. But, I think the fact that if you look at the rules and how they're implemented in favor of scoring, right? You have the kickoffs, you have the special teams, good field position, right? Because of the kickoffs, they should be able to get good field position. And then you have the conversion rates, the conversions after touchdown. Coaches have the option of going for 1, 2, and 3. And we've seen, Seattle very aggressive, going for 3. Teams that have gone for 3 have hit them at a 50% clip this year, 3 for 6. Seattle's 2 for 4. But you look at the highest scoring team, Houston, who scored 7 touchdowns, and they go for 1 every time, and they never get it. 0 for 6 going for 1. They're like 1 for 1, I think, going for 2. But so the higher scoring teams aren't getting any points. They're getting 6 every time. So that's going to bring down scoring in general. So when you look at like just the special teams mistakes that we've seen on like kickoffs and punt returns, combine that with, the fact that we're getting 6 points every time we score a touchdown league wide. Teams are only averaging 0.7 points after a touchdown, not even 1 point. So, they're not getting 7 every time they get in the end zone. And I think all that kind of contributes to the lower scoring. I think as the coaches figure that out, things will definitely improve.
It's hard. It's a double-edged sword with that, because the USFL, you could kick the 1 and then go for 2 or go for 3. Ultimately, I don't know if that's the better decision, but then you have them and then they never go for 2 or 3 because they just kick the point. So like, if you make it so there is no option and you have to run a play, it's a hard balance there of the post touchdown, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I'm like less kicking the better. Like, to be honest with you, like, especially in these leagues, like that was the big issue with the USFL is like, every time they went to kick field goal, it was a circus. You had no idea what was going to happen. You didn't know if it was getting blocked, if he was going to hook it. You had no clue. So, there aren't enough good kickers in the NFL. And now you're getting into these leagues. Now we got 2 spring leagues. These guys can't hit anything. The kicking this year, though, has been good in the USFL in general, I feel like. But, To me, like I'd rather see a play. I'd rather see a play from the 1 yard line, but I'd also rather see like we're going to need these, the good offenses to be aggressive, and I think that's kind of, that's what sells in the NFL, aggressive offenses like Kansas City and that sort of stuff. So we need the coaches to get a little more comfortable with their players. Hopefully that happens as the year progresses.
One more question that I want to do some kind of, team matchups here. We talked
Sure.
USFL and their, lack of injury reports, lack of reporting. We'd get them like at 3 a.m. on Friday, whatever. Here, XFL, like we kind of email them out to, like, luckily, I'm like, thank you. Like I, email them and I tweet them out. And like, we kind of send out the depth charts, and I know they're busy. Like I know they're doing 1,000 things, but I'm like, am I supposed to share this? Are we supposed to do that? Like, how are you feeling about the dissemination of information from the XFL?
Yeah, it's better, than the USFL.
Hard
so
to be
we'll
worse.
take it. It's not the NFL, but it's not going to be the NFL. So it's fine. And I think the biggest challenge is people who want that information at typically times, like they want it for sports betting purposes or DFS purposes, right? So, especially the DFS crowd, very important. And, they want certainty. But like in this type of league, when you have a coach coaching a team that he's never seen before, putting together an offense that they've never seen before, there's going to be a ton of just like, we see it with half the teams are using 2 quarterbacks now. Like, there's not going to be any certainty. So like, if you want 100% certainty, you're not going to get it by these injury reports. But it's good to know, like if somebody's like hurt and they might not go, that might change the way you handicap the game. But I think, it's been better. It could, could obviously, hopefully it'll continue to improve. One of the other things I think needs to improve is the command center with the officiating. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think that has been probably the biggest black eye on the league. It's just, I feel like if you're going to sell Blandino in this command center, being able to make these decisions or like buzz down and get the call right when it's wrong. I haven't seen any of that. Like every time there's been a controversial call or a close call, all of a sudden Blandino can't see anything. Like I don't know what's going on. And then it's like, and I feel like, we've watched plays happen. Like I think this weekend I want to say it was in the Houston game. There's like a pass interference call and he's up there saying he can't do anything because they're not challenging it. And it's like, I don't understand. Like, I don't think anyone really understands what his role is, what he's doing. But it just seems like whenever there's a big play, they don't have the right camera angle. And I think that's kind of, if you're going to promote that as something that makes your league different, like you have to operate it correctly,
I'm a sucker. Dean was on the show preseason. I'm a sucker for a good personality because I thought Mike Pereira, I thought he was the worst, like the worst in that role. Cause it's like, when they obviously like, this is not, and like, we're okay, Mike, like we got it. Dean at least like it's like charismatic enough to sell it.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yep. 100%.
But yeah, no. And like, we're doing the penalty or we're doing the challenge. We can do that. And, we don't know if we can challenge or we don't have 87 people up in our media box that are like, hey, Bill Belichick, like throw the flag. We don't have that. You have 6 seconds and Rob Woodson's like, well, I guess like I can't even hear my comms right now. Like, I don't know. I'm trying. I think that's a good point.
Yeah. I just think it's like, to me, it's in order for these leagues to succeed. And I think you see that with the conversions and the kickoffs. Like I think the kickoffs, the XFL kickoff is probably the best thing about the league because it's different than the NFL and it's good. So you need those two things. You need it to be different and you need it to be good. And I think that, the biggest, complaint about the NFL is the officiating. They don't have full-time officials. The officials are, changing the outcome of games every week. And it's just kind of like a mess with the officiating. So I think if they can get that right, it could be a huge like tip in their cap, like a huge something that they could really market. But you can't have them in the command center saying, well, I can't see anything. Like, that's why you're there. Like, I don't know, you got to be able to, they got to get the right angles. And, I just thought that they need to do a better job with that. And I don't know, maybe they don't need to put them on the spot on the camera all the time. Maybe that's the answer, but it just seems like really inefficient and inconsistent, which is just kind of like, oh, okay, if we're going to have the same result that we have in the NFL from an officiating standpoint, then why market this,
It is, and I know it's like it's all access, so you see all the warts, right? Like you really do see, you know, like when the cons are working, you see. But it is like sometimes when like they go to Dean, he's like, are we going to break? Are we back? Like, I'm like, it's kind of like watching like your mom with like Windows XP, like trying to figure like no, like okay, like no, like minimize, like drag, you know, like click start. But it's great. I mean, but I guess they just have to be open to that, right? Like if you're gonna open it up to everybody to see everything, we are going to see everything. And sometimes it does feel like like get off TV right now, like go to break.
Yeah, yep. And it's, you know, and it's like I said, I would rather have the access than not.
Yes,
so I think they're on the right path, but I just think the execution of it is not good. And that was kind of like when he's in the booth and he's saying he can't see anything, then that's kind of like a problem. But you know what I mean? So I think that kind of stuff they need to do better at. But they'll get there. They'll improve with that, just like the teams and the players will improve on the field.
But like there was a lot made this week online about the Vegas situation and like, you know, shut up if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it or quit complaining. I'm like, not one thing in this world has ever been improved by being like, yeah, it's fine. Like, it's like, you know, I mean, you can say something like I can watch and construct. It's same with the USFL. Like you just sitting around and being like, well, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Like, well, then it's never going to get better. You got to
never going to get better. But yeah, I mean, the Vegas, I don't know the situation with that. I guess they had trouble getting a venue, and then they got Cashman Field at the last minute, and you know whatnot. But again, like if you got fans out there supporting it, I think that's great. That's all they really need. Like it's not going to be the best venue year one. They can kind of build on that from, you know, year two or make the venue better. But you know, I thought anytime you have that type of weather in a game like that, like it's just going to be a tough game. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of contributed to the you know, the reduction in scoring that we saw in week 2. When you have, you know, 25% of your games in a torrential downpour, it's going to make it difficult to put points on the board.
If you ever interested, we have about 17 hours of Cashman Field Chronicles on the Markcast. If you ever want to go check that out, Kevin Costner was going to come in and make a Field of Dreams in Vegas. Like we had a whole thing. But speaking of the Field of Dreams here, you know, coming up, we have Sea Dragons at Vegas kickoff Saturday, both 0-2. I think any of these teams fall to 0. You know, one of them is going to be 0-3, and that's going to be a scary position here. FX and ESPN Plus. What do you make of? You know, we talked, you know, a little bit of the struggles, turnover with the Sea Dragons, but what do you make of this game?
Yeah, I think that the turnover issues aren't going to go away unless they make a change at quarterback. So I think that, you know, Vegas has a chance to keep this one close. I think anytime that you're, you know, in a game, and especially in a league like this where you have running clock, you know, everything kind of moves fast. The game's kind of a little bit more condensed, right? There's not a ton of scoring. And you can get turnovers. You're going to be in the driver's seat. I think the fact that, you know, the field is going to be dry, you know, Hundley's got a week under his belt. So I think Vegas's offense could look better. But one of the things that I think is important that I noticed today, you know, I played a little bit of under 38.5 for the betting crowd under there, out there. Because I did see that it looks like we are going to have a lot of wind. Could be 15-mile-per-hour winds, gusts up to 30 miles per hour, which makes it difficult to throw the football. So when I look at this game, I see two teams. I got one that is really kind of can't run the football in Vegas, and then I got another one that refuses to run it in Seattle, and they're going to be playing in what could be 30-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So it could be a rough day for both offenses, again, making turnovers even more important. But I think this is a big test for Seattle because obviously they're one of the most talented teams in the XFL. And if they are going to turn things around, you know, they need to start now. Like this is a game, Vegas. This is not one of the best teams in the XFL. This is a very winnable game for them. And if they go to 0-3, it's going to be tough to dig themselves back because it's only 10 weeks.
I was in the same episode. I was talking with Chris Maathuis, who's like one of the sports directors down there in Vegas. And I think he was saying too that because they, you know, it's the baseball field, but they positioned the football field in it, and they wanted it with the like Vegas skyline behind or whatever. So it's like the other way. Like it's horizontal when it should be vertical or whatever. So the winds is even worse, is I think in the wind where you're always
really
going
okay.
I think that's what he was trying to say, that
the way it's constructed.
It's positioned in such a way so that they could do the TV angles and everything. But I think it compounds that issue that maybe would already be an issue.
Wow. So that'll be interesting. It's something to keep an eye on, because again, like if teams are struggling to throw the ball, Vegas has some mobility with Huntley if they have Huntley in there instead of Perez. And, I think that offense is interesting. Like when they get out of the wind and they can play in some like ideal conditions, in week 4, I'll be interested because they moved the ball pretty well in the first half against Arlington. Should have had 21 points in the first half. They had that goofy offensive pass interference call, which was nonsense on Bennett at the end. But I thought they moved the ball well in the first half of that game, but in that rainstorm, they couldn't do anything. So, the wind could be a major factor in this one. So we might not know much about Vegas's offense until week 4.
Does Vegas have the worst home field advantage in football history?
Well, you know what? I think that a lot of these are the same. Like if you look at the game with Orlando, that's a whole different conversation, that team. But they didn't have a huge crowd. Like, I don't think they have a good home. I think like the Domes and like DC is really the best ones. Like you're going to see, St. Louis, San Antonio, and DC. And I was talking about this, with a colleague, even like the fact that like Lumen Field is like, incredibly loud. But the fact that it's actually in a pro stadium hurts it. Like it's better to be in like a smaller, compact stadium where you can kind of get that noise going. It makes it like a more of a rowdy environment to where like if you're having a pro football stadium and you got to like, close down the top level and it's just not the same.
Yeah. No, Lumen Field that's a massive stadium. When you got 8,000 people, whatever in there, that is a massive hole. So here, talking, lemon gates of the world, beer snakes of the world. We have here going back to Audi Field, which I think is the best, except for St. Louis, kind of the best atmosphere, right? Just in terms of you really get that soccer feel, all that. The battle of the undefeateds here, St. Louis going into DC.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting one, right? Because I think that DC is a team that's been kind of a little bit overrated from the beginning. And to be honest, I wasn't sold on St. Louis because of their offensive line issues, right? 6 sacks throughout the first 2 games. We've seen them clean it up a little bit against a tough Seattle defense. But I think that, a lot of people just expect this DC team to be able to run the football in this matchup because they did it so well in the rain against Vegas. But they didn't run the ball well week 1 against Seattle. So, and again, they have the weakest passing attack in the entire XFL. I think Tiamu's like 40%, completion percentage, 45%. So they really don't have any type of passing offense. And I think when you're one-dimensional, it's a little easier for a defense to kind of, attack you and shut you down when, you don't have a threat in throwing the football. So they've done a good job so far. Greg Williams against that St. Louis offensive line could be a problem. But to me, like, hey, listen, man, like, how do you bet against, if this is going to be a close game, how do you bet against AJ McCarron at this point? He's just shown the ability to kind of get the job done in the fourth quarter week after week. Again, I wasn't big on this St. Louis team. I think they're soft on the offensive line. I think that could eventually be their, downfall. But I think in this type of matchup, when you look at these two teams, when they played Seattle, DC let up 331 yards, most yards out of any defense in week 1 of the XFL. And St. Louis did a much better job on Seattle's offense. And again, moved the ball much better on Seattle's defense than DC did. So I think St. Louis is live here to get the win on the road.
It's funny. I wouldn't know if you'd be surprised to know that St. Louis, very diehard fans online. And, for years it was like, are they coming back? Are they coming back? Are they coming, like freaking out. And then they're back and oh my God. And
now they're never home.
Well, yeah, they're never home. And that's the thing. But the amount of messages I got like at halftime of that Brahmas game week 1, like, oh, this team, I'm like, now they're
done.
Yeah, now they're 2-0. It's a wonky 2-0, but I think AJ McCarron, like you said, he's the Cinderella story of, if the PJ Walker whatever was the story of 2020, this is the AJ McCarron show right now with Coach Beck, like screaming on the sidelines. I like it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that they're a team. And again, I talked about this last week, not realizing that they were going to be on the road again. But, if they win this game and they come out of this 3-0, they're almost a shoo-in for the playoffs because they're going to have 5 home games in their last 7 games. So, like that, and it's going to be an advantage for them. Like playing in St. Louis, again, I think San Antonio has an advantage. I think DC does. I think it's going to make a big difference. So, it's a pretty big game for them if they can get this win on the road. And I just think DC a little bit overrated. I think a lot of people saw what they did on the ground against Vegas. And I think some of that was Vegas pretty stout against the run in week 1. I think some of that just had to do with the weather and the fact that Vegas really couldn't get anything going on offense.
We'll get the last 2 here. We'll get you out of here. Thanks for your time. We have, what I've been told, I ask everyone, who is the worst team in the football history? The Maulers in the USFL or Orlando? I'm still told it's the Maulers by a country mile, but Orlando not looking good.
No, this is like, Buckley gives me Kirby Wilson vibes, man. Like you saw him on the sidelines, and it's very reminiscent. Like he's like yelling at the players. Like the one guy, I don't know who it was. It was like, I want to go back on the field. I'm not coming off the field. Like he was trying to show coach like he's in it. He can't, they can count on him. Buckley started yelling at him like, "This is my team. You'll do what I tell you."
We need new guys. We need new guys. Like we need.
We need we're gonna bring some players. He's just like threatening everybody. He kept harping on the offense. Like, listen, the offense was terrible, but like the defense is not good. They let up 63 points in 2 weeks. It's a league where nobody's scoring and they're letting up 30 each week. So I just think that it's a tough situation for Orlando, but Arlington is a team that I was very down on. I thought they'd be one of the worst teams in the league coming into the season. And I feel like we're starting to see that with them, even though they kind of hung tight against Houston. Houston turned the ball over 1,000 times in that game. And Arlington's just a team that has no offense. So Bob Stoops tries to run the ball. They get 2 yards of pop on the ground. Plitt is not, a viable quarterback in this league. So I don't know. Like, I'm not saying Orlando could win this game because I don't think they can, but I think it could be a little bit closer than people think. But I don't know, man. Like, I'm really worried about Orlando. Like, I think that, it's very possible that Buckley has lost this team already after 2 weeks. They had 13 penalties. Like that's not the players. Like when there's like, when you have all these they get sacked 1,000 times, they have 1,000 penalties, 1,000 turnovers. Like, it can't just be the players. There's a big gap, I feel like, between them and the rest of the league. And I don't know, man. It'll be interesting to see because they make plays on offense, but they just, with sacks and dumb penalties. We saw it against this weekend. The guy jumps off sides, the critical third down, the late hit, just a really undisciplined football in Orlando. So, they're a team that I don't think they're going to win this game. Now, I think they're getting like 9.5 points in the in the betting market. I think they might be able to keep it close. Like I don't know if I'd want to lay 9.5 with Arlington or whatnot, but I think Orlando is surely going to be the worst team in the league.
I called Kirby Wilson was the Mad King of the USFL. I haven't quite figured out what is the analogy here with Buckley. My other question for you is, what do you make of like you said, Drew Plitt, not good. We bring in Kyle Sloter, right? He's USFL whatever. I had kind of emailed this week, media like, hey, like could we talk to Sloter? Like what's going on? I was told like not right now. So, something's going on there. I don't know if we're getting the quarterback change. I mean, it doesn't seem like this team can win with Drew Plitt continuously.
Yeah, but, here's the thing, right? And I think this from following the USFL. Kyle Sloter is not very good. And, he was like, USFL had to market something. And, so they were like, hey, this guy's throwing for a lot of yards. So they, marketed that. But he was throwing a ton of interceptions. I felt like, and I don't know, maybe you agree with me, but I felt like New Orleans and the USFL had by far the best skill position players on offense out of any team in the league. And he could not get it done with that team. I mean, that offense was brutal. A ton of turnovers. Like, I was not impressed with Sloter in the USFL at all. So I don't think that now you're going to put him here with Stoops, who wants to run the ball 30 times for 2 yards and carry, in an offense that really doesn't have playmakers outside of the tight end and, doesn't have a running game and doesn't have the greatest offensive line. Like, I don't think he's going to succeed here. I don't know. Maybe I'm being harsh, but I think his situation in New Orleans was much better and he struggled in the USFL coming here into this offense. Like, I don't know, man.
Well, he was one of the big ones. Do you think Stoops is going to regret leaving his home and wife? He said, like, my wife wants me out of the house. I got to go coach. And now it's going to be like, this is a failed experiment. I need to go back home.
I don't know. I think that in a sense, like, I think that they're a little bit overrated because of his name. And they think like, oh, Bob Stoops is just going to come in here. But like the real value of a guy with Bob Stoops is not year one in any league. Like, it's the fact that, like, if he's able to get some kind of continuity and work with these guys continuously year after year, if he keeps the coaching staff, some continuity there, he can have success. But, like, you're only as good as the cards that you're dealt. And when I looked at this roster before the season started, I'm like, I've been watching these leagues all the time. I don't know none of these guys. I had the kid Smallwood from LA, back in 2020, but like, I'm like, they got the tight end, but like, this isn't the Chiefs. It's not Travis Kelce. You're not going to run your whole offense through your tight end. You're going to need more. And I just don't think that they're a very good offensive team. Defense makes plays. The defense is pretty good, but I think they're one of the worst offenses in the league, and I don't know if Sloter is going to be like a differentiator.
Last one here, we got this the other kind of more exciting. I would say Brahma's coming off a big win against Houston. The happiest person in the world for just a moment watching Brandon Silvers with the post game winning press conference on like prime time, ESPN2 or whatever the Sunday night game was. What do you make of this final matchup of the weekend?
Yeah, I think this one could be fun. I like Houston here, but again, there were some concerning things, right? We saw the turnovers. We saw, everyone wanted to find out what Houston was made of when they weren't playing Orlando, right? And I think they did, playing Arlington. But again, Arlington not really a threat offensively. So they're going to get a little bit of difference here because I like what Jaime Elizondo has been doing, with the offense. They got some weapons at wide receiver. They had some trouble in the red zone in week 1 against St. Louis, but and they had some trouble running the ball last week. So if they can't run the ball this week, that Wade Phillips defense is going to be all over Jack Cohn. Jack Cohn, not a guy with a lot of mobility, right? So that, that's something you have to think about. So I think that's going to be the real like difference maker is like, can they run the ball against Houston? I'm not so sure. And, Cohn could be kind of like a sitting duck, now does, Elizondo like scheme up some, quick, passing plays, do the quick game with Cohn to kind of offset that pass rush. Very possible. But I think we know what we have at Houston. I mean, they're going to score a ton of points. They're probably going to be one of the most prolific, offenses in the league. They got a great defense. I think they're going to be there at the end. I don't know if they're the best team because, like I said, they're going to have to protect the ball a little bit better. And Silvers looks like he's a little bit all over the place, a little bit up and down last week. But I think they're one of the better teams. San Antonio, we'll have to see, right? Looked good last week, but again, it's Orlando. Couldn't get in the end zone the week before against St. Louis, so. I don't know. I mean, it's going to tell us a lot about both teams here. I think we could be in for a little bit of a close match, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing, Houston Roughnecks continuing on. It's like they never left and they're just rolling back on again.
New players, everything's changed. Helmets are different, but they keep on winning. And, I think a lot of it has to do with, Wade Phillips in general, like just, having him there, being able to kind of run the defense. And then, what do? They go out in offense. They get A.J. Smith to run the offense, June Jones disciple, right? So we know that offense translates well in this type of league where you don't have a quarterback having to make a million reads. It's quick, boom, boom, boom. I think that helps, right? And, early on, they look pretty good. But, we'll have to see. Like I said, the turnovers were a little bit concerning. And I think if they do that against San Antonio here, they'll keep San Antonio in the game because I think San Antonio is going to try and beat them with short passes and, just kind of keep the clock moving, kind of slow things down, keep the ball out of their offense's hands.
Well, Mark, I appreciate it. People can check out Yahoo Sports, get all of your, sports betting and all your other, insights, everything over there. I appreciate it, but I like seeing, people like you and others like covering this outside of just like the 6 people I talk to kind of on the regular. So it's nice.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's a lot of fun. And like I said, we'll learn more about these teams as the season goes on. Like this is far from the finished product. It'll get much better, as it goes, but it's good to see it have the buzz, have some momentum behind it. And it'll be interesting. We got robbed at the ending of the 2020 season, but we'll get it this year with 2023.
Awesome. Mark Drumheller, Yahoo Sports. Really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Reed.
Well, I took the time. I did put on my "He Hate Me" Las Vegas Outlaws jersey today, and I don't know if he would hate the Vegas Vipers DC Defenders game last weekend, but I kind of did. We have Chris Maathuis here, KLAS out in Vegas. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing? Hey, that was the most popular guy in the league, by the way. He hate me, Rod. That was a lot of fun. That was a gigantic contrast to what we saw on Saturday, that old XFL team here in Las Vegas.
Well, so I want to get you onto that. I wanted someone that was, boots on the ground. I feel like this is like Peter King or whoever the old Peter Engel, the old ESPN reporter. Like, Chris, you were on the ground out there. Like, how was everything? Like, you were at the game. I watched the game in highlights flying home from Mexico, and then I did sit and watch the game once we got back from vacation. What was it like for you?
Yeah, you are to be commended that you absolutely sat through that game. Well, the weather was crappy, first of all, in the second half as you watched there on TV. But it's just, I feel bad for the XFL, for The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and Danny for just, I mean, they wanted to be in Las Vegas really, really badly. They said from the beginning that Las Vegas was supposed to be like one of their premier markets. They had to be in Las Vegas, and Las Vegas is what it is, but it's not the same city that it was back when He Hate Me and Rod Smart and the old XFL, and the place was packed, and Vince McMahon out there yelling, "This is the XFL." It's just a totally different city now. They announced a crowd of just over 6,000. I'm guessing there were probably more like 4,000 there. Like I said, the weather wasn't any good. It was windy at the beginning, and then at halftime it started to rain. It just got worse. They're playing at a baseball park. We mentioned that last time. That's where they were going to play. Well, they just had trouble from the beginning. They didn't put because they were so late in getting the location secured. They didn't have a chance to reseed the grass. So, I mean, they painted what you saw there on the TV screen. The green was all paint. I went out there about, I think it was 4 days before the game, just to kind of talk to the owner or the guy who leases Cashman Field, who owns the FC Lights, Brett Lashbrook. And he kind of took me around and took me over, and we saw the field and, the lines through the middle that some vehicle went through there. And they were just putting up the outfield banners, but it was very, very brown. So what you saw on TV wasn't anything like what it was in real life. I mean, it was just a mess, and they had to scramble to put it together. They had to scramble to get Cashman Field ready. There was bird droppings all over Cashman Field because it just been empty for so many months since the FC Lights concluded their season. So, I mean, you feel bad for those guys because they want to have Vegas. They want to be successful. You got Rod Woodson, a former Raider. Now the Raiders here, so you got that tie-in and Hall of Famer. And, I mean, you really do feel bad because it's a crappy location. It really is. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's a bad location. People don't want to go down there. On the north side of town. Brett Lashbrook suffers with soccer. They're going to suffer here with the XFL in terms of attendance numbers. And what you saw, the product was just unwatchable in that first half. It was terrible. I mean, this Vipers team, they want to get something going. I mean, Rod wants to get the team running and so forth. They've had the lead in both games at the half, but the second half, they were just terrible. It was a tough watch. I'll just say that. A tough watch.
Yeah, I think with the attendance, I think we get a little bit of it, and they do this in the CFL where, maybe that was like season tickets sold, and like tickets sold was maybe 6,000. Like, I don't think there was any way there were 6,000 people there in the attendance. I had, we do a lot of CFL stuff, and I was talking with one of our CFL reporters, Dave Naylor, who, he just kind of a historian of football across North America, and I asked him, contextually, where does this venue fit in? And he said, well, Reed, like, obviously there's been venues where accommodations aren't great or the seats aren't good or we don't have but combine that with how unsafe the playing surface was. He goes, I don't think I've ever seen anything in 50 years that was that everything together.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was terrible. You saw the kickers fall down, sliding, slipping. Like I say, they didn't give enough time. Now, maybe next year, if the XFL is back next year, they'll have enough time to get the field ready, make it look nice, put some, maybe some permanent stands. I mean, I was kind of actually worried for the broadcast group over on that north side of the field. The field is east and west. because they wanted to have the cameras looking south toward Las Vegas, understandably so. You want to have the cameras looking and you see Las Vegas in the background. So, I mean, that's a smart move. But I was actually worried because the winds came up, the rain came up, and you couldn't see it because you're on TV. Well, actually, they did show it a few times, the broadcast tower. I mean, the wind, I was actually worried. I thought, man, that's not very safe up there. And obviously nothing happened, of course. But it's just put together, quickly and rushed. And it's just not a good look for the XFL.
Does something like this, and obviously, and you're there with the other media people, and you're with your one station, and you guys all talk, and we have people from outside come in. Like, does this sour now? Like, I mean, do they get a mulligan because it was so terrible weather? We're going to be there, next weekend as well, or is it like this was so bad that we've written this off?
I'm going to be surprised when Seattle comes in here on Saturday just to kind of see what the crowd is. Is it going to be the 4,000 look that we had last week, or will there be less people because they saw the product, they don't care about the product? There's really no reason now. I mean, you got the Raiders here now. It's just, I'm kind of surprised. I mean, the XFL probably should have gone to Salt Lake City or somewhere like that where they can actually build a fan base. There isn't football there, professional football there, where they can actually maybe do something. And here, I think it's going to be a real tough sell, especially now with all the sports going on. When you got the Raiders, you got UNLV hoping to improve. You got all that UNLV sports. Plus, you got Formula One that we're talking about now. What are we talking about? We're talking about UFC this weekend's crazy. Let me tell you what's going on in Las Vegas. In addition to the XFL, you've got big league weekend. So the Oakland A's are playing the Reds here Saturday, Sunday, which is big for us because now we're going to talk to the A's, their brass, about, hey, what do you think of Las Vegas? Are you going to actually come here? You're going to build a stadium? So that's big for us. We got UFC 285, John Jones making his big return after years away. So that's going to draw some attention. The Rebels are playing. You got NASCAR's here over the weekend. You got the big Pennzoil 400 on Sunday, Xfinity race on Saturday, and then you got the XFL. So it's going to be a real tough sell. I'll be really interested to see how many fans do show up on Saturday afternoon to see the Vipers play. It'll be interesting to see.
Well, it's one of those, and so I guess I'll answer this, and then I have a ratings note to talk to you about. It is one of those things. Like, I remember years ago, there was a wrestling company, I think it was TNA at the time, and they wanted to be like in San Antonio, like in the Alamo Dome. The Alamo Dome is this big cavernous. They only were drawing like 8,000. And they did, and they had it all cordoned off, right? Like they played in the Alamo Dome, right? But it was 10% of the capacity, whatever. Looked weird. Like, XFL is in Vegas, right? But if they're often, they're showing the downtown strip, we know the field is nowhere near there. They're off here in this random ass baseball park, attended by 4,000 or 6,000 people. Like, is that worth in your estimation to be in Vegas with all of that?
See, I say no anymore. That's why I feel bad for the owners and the ownership group, and really for even the coaches here and all that are involved in this, because it's just not. I just think Vegas is a different city now. I think they could have done better in another city, although Vegas is Vegas. So you say, wow, we got to get into Vegas because it is Vegas. And so many people would like to get here. So many teams would like to. Well, soon it'll be the NBA. I mean, if you got time, I could tell you about what they're talking about with the NBA, with LeBron and all that, wants to own a team here. But having said that, I just don't think it's a wise move. Vegas has moved past the XFL, I think, now. And there's this, because there's so much competition here. There's so many things going on. The XFL is now 5th on the totem pole, where back when they were wearing the jersey that you have on, it was the big deal. That was the first professional team sport to roll into Las Vegas. And so fans were excited. They were thrilled. It was out at Sam Boyd Stadium, which is at least has a semblance of a stadium, a football field there. And it was fun. They had, Vince McMahon with his innovations, and that was cool. The cheerleaders were like 20-year-old strippers off the strip down there. It was a different feel. It was Vegas, because that was the first thing Vegas had as a professional team. Totally different than what it is now. It almost seems, I hate to say it, almost seems kind of rinky dink right now in Las Vegas. Just the whole setup. You're at Cashman Field. You got the broadcast booth over there on some
scaffolding,
and they're open to the weather, and It's just it just doesn't look good. It really doesn't. I mean, Vegas has moved past the XFL, I believe. I could be wrong. Maybe next week they show up with 6,000 and they start winning some games. And people, that's another thing about Las Vegas. I've been here 26 years. Boy, more than any other city I've been around. If you don't win, the fans are so fickle here because it's built on that kind of mentality: winners, losers. The big resorts, and you got to win here. And it's just if they don't win, they're done. I mean, they won't be back next year.
Yeah, is it worth, and I know they went back and forth with Bishop Gorman, like to be, and I think there were like issues with the facilities and showers, and we weren't but at least that was like a football field, like a high quality football field. Like, I mean, do they've paid up? It's not a lot. Do we cut bait here after this year, right? I mean, I don't think we can do anything for the last 4 home games. I think they'll be done with home games by week 7 or 8, hopefully. So I mean, at least we can like kind of run through them and get out of here. But would you cut bait on Vegas after this year if they could?
I would be really surprised if they're back next year. The Gorman thing was interesting. Like, okay, like would you have paid to tear up that Gorman field and put your own logo in there? Because they have the big G out there on their field. It's artificial turf. So would you have to pay to change that up? You mentioned the lockers. This is a high school, Gorman Wesley. It was Gorman or Cashman. Well, they had to bring, lockers and had to bring some, facilities into Cashman to make that work. What they probably should have done if they're really committed is maybe I don't know, what was it, a couple $100,000 and lay down a whole new turf out there at Cashman. But see, the location is bad. I tell Brett that he owns the lights, and I even told him, I said, Brett, that's just a bad location. If you had the wherewithal to build a soccer stadium somewhere else in Henderson or anywhere else, if you had the money, would you do it? In a heartbeat like that, he would. So that location is such a bad location, and for the XFL to roll in, they're thinking, "Hey, we got this product. Fans will come down." They just won't. It's just not a location, and the demographics are different downtown in that location than they would be somewhere else. So, no, I will be really surprised if they're back next year, unless something changes drastically.
And the last question for me, I don't want to hammer this home, but I think it's important to get someone that was there. 605,000 on FX and ESPN Deportes reported by Mike Mitchell today. Does that surprise you? Ratings higher or lower than you would think?
You say it was 6,000?
600,000 between FX Network, which the game was on, and then ESPN Deportes.
Wow, I'm actually surprised it was that big, to be honest with you. I'm actually surprised. I mean, I'm surprised. I'm surprised at that number, that there were that many people watching that game, because like I say, it was a hard watch. It was a tough watch. Someone who sat there and watched that game in the first half, and you're thinking, well, first of all, the quality wasn't bad. The TV production wasn't all that bad. I mean, it is what it is, but just the football was just a tough watch. So considering all that, and that you say they had almost over 500,000, I'm kind of surprised at that number, actually. And I'll probably say, let me say this. I'm going to guess a lot of those eyeballs were because, hey, let's see what Vegas has. See, that's the magic of Vegas. If someone says, hey, there's something going on in Vegas, I'm going to tune in and see. Now, it might have been crappy and they tune away, but Vegas has that draw, like, it's Vegas. Let's just see what's happening in Vegas.
Last question for me. What were the sideline conversations like between you? It's pouring rain, and I'm sure you're in and out doing everything else. But you guys are sitting there like, what the hell are we doing here? Like, we got to get out of here.
Well, that's funny you bring that up, because at the same time, well, I guess it was actually an hour and a half later, the Golden Knights were getting ready to play, and some guys at Cashman Field, hey, you know what? We're going to roll out of here and get over to a T-Mobile Arena and see what the Knights are doing. That was the mentality. I mean, it was rain, it was pouring. Let's go have some fun, because this game is not fun. So let's go have some fun and watch something else and cover something else. And that was kind of, well, you saw how many people left at Cashman Field. So and even when we're sitting there, we're thinking, wow, this is just too bad. I mean, they paint the grass, it looks crappy still. It's a east-west, and you got these scaffolding over on the far sideline for these broadcasters, and the team comes out, and they got a couple little Viper banners and a little bit of smoke, and they come running out. It's just not, when you see the Raiders, obviously they got tons of money. When you see what the Golden Knights do, even the Aces, the Las Vegas Aces, the WNBA, they don't have a lot of money either. But what you see what they do, and then you kind of saw what the vibe. It's just like it was second class, third class. It just, I feel bad for the XFL being here because I think they could do something a lot better somewhere else.
Well, Chris, I appreciate your time today. I look forward to welcoming your Vegas Golden Knights up here for the T-Mobile Winter Classic here. It will be in Seattle here in the new year. So we're still waiting to get our season tickets for that event, but I think it'll be fun. Hopefully you guys don't kill us. I know that you're leading the Pacific right now.
Yeah, but those Kraken are playing well. They're hanging in there. I mean, this Pacific is going to be awesome coming down. 20 games left of the regular season. I'm really excited for the final 20 games of the season because that West and that Pacific is so tight. How's it all going to shake out? What's going to happen? Are the Golden Knights going to be Pacific Division champs, Western Conference champs? Do the LA Kings jump up there? Do the Kraken get hot and win some games? I mean, it only takes probably a 3, 4, 5 game winning streak, and boom, you're in first place.
It's exciting. Chris Maathuis, appreciate it. Appreciate you doing the Lord's work out there, surviving the Vegas. It was crazy because we did the XFL kickoff, and then I met my family down in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Like they were going because my wife's a teacher, and it was like midwinter break. I'm sitting there. It's 82. It's 20 for the Seattle game, right at Lumen Field, and it was whatever it was, raining and windy in Vegas. I thought, what the hell is going on here? I'm so glad I'm out of here.
It was crazy. They won't play in the rain again this year in Las Vegas. I see it, the Vipers. But I wish them luck. I mean, that's why I don't want to sound all negative because I actually do wish them luck because I'm a sports fan like you. I love to go watch the sports and see this new team, and you hope they succeed. I mean, I might have been come off really negative. I do feel bad they're here, to be honest with you, but still, I want them to succeed. They just probably won't, but I do want them to succeed.
Well, Chris, we appreciate your time today. Good luck with everything. Well, I'm excited. The last time I saw this gentleman, we were in a casino in Regina, previewing the Grey Cup, and now we are talking, CFL, the USFL, and XFL, everything else. How are you doing at Farhan, Lalji?
I'm good. Yeah, I remember that time. I remember listening to music from way back in the 80s that was prevalent in that casino, so it was a different experience. But hey, you go to Regina. I'm sure I was clean shaven and in a suit then, as opposed to my Linden football T-shirt and 3 days worth of growth here. So you'll take me as you get me, buddy.
That's good. Well, I appreciate it. Well, we did the XFL kickoff last week, and then I was literally like walking the beach in Puerto Vallarta with Dorothy, and I see McLeod Bethel-Thompson to the USFL. We've had a couple of XFL signings I want to talk about as well. First off, I mean, that shook me. We messaged. You said you had conversations with him. Did not surprise you as much. Talk through the McLeod Bethel-Thompson of it all.
Yeah, McLeod's a different guy, right? In that, for him, he's really a football purist. He just wants to play the game, right? And he wants to be able to play it in a way that's convenient given his family situation. And that was the priority. Certainly, had he want to come back to the CFL Toronto, and I'm sure other teams would have been really interested in him, but Toronto would have made him their starter. They would have paid him what starting quarterbacks make in this league, and everything would have been fine. And obviously, he's gotten comfortable playing in this league and has had more success as we've gone here. And for them to win the Grey Cup was a big deal for him. But it was really, really important to him. He made that clear to me when we spoke in December that my daughter means so much to me. She's young. With my wife's schedule, I want to be there. I want to be a part of that. I don't want to just take off and go. This is the guy that won the Grey Cup, and the next day was on a plane back to Atlanta. He wasn't wanting to stick around for 3 more days and wait for the victory parade and the celebration, right? So he's also, there's some people that will look down at some of the spring leagues. Well, he played in the spring league before during COVID. So he's not, that's not necessarily something that he feels he's above. So for him, he just wants to be able to play. And if he can do it in the way that's most convenient, he's not going to make it about money, because he certainly would have been paid a lot more had he stuck in the CFL.
In terms of, and you've seen the level, in XFL, they siphoned a few here from the USFL before the season, and some of them are seeing success or not. But, him 34 coming into the USFL, especially the Breakers, but just in terms of quarterback, to me, that feels like a big signing. Like, hey, we have whatever the reasoning behind it, we're able to attract a big name to our league. Yeah,
and that's fair. And when you look at the big takeaway I had from watching, these spring leagues in the last few years when they've been operating, is the quarterback play was really, really, really poor. And so when and there'd be 1 or 2 outliers, right? And then when you can get a guy like like McLeod Bethel-Thompson, he knows how to play the game. And, he's been in NFL camps and practice rosters and all of that, and has a real sense of certainly four-down football there, and has had some success playing up here. He knows how to not just navigate an offense and go through his reads, but how to be the quarterback and how to manage situations and how to manage offenses and coaches and be a professional and be a leader and all of those types of things. There's nothing in the XFL or USFL that's going to phase that guy.
In terms of name value and player recognition, we had Darnell Sankey here go to the XFL, as well as Colin Kelly, I believe, is a offensive tackle, a couple others. Biggest name to go thus far from the CFL down south in that way?
Yeah, McLeod for sure, right? And Darnell Sankey's been one of the leading tacklers in the league for the last couple of years, and he kind of rolled the dice a little bit. And, he was offered a contract in Saskatchewan, didn't want to take it necessarily, and then didn't really find the market for him elsewhere. And generally, there really isn't a big market in this league. Like DBs, people in the NFL, I guess running back's the most disposable position, and there's some of that here in the CFL as well. But then it's like DBs and linebackers. Where the money gets invested is quarterbacks, now receivers, and both sides of the line of scrimmage. At O-line and D-line. And there's not going to be money going around to the other positions. That's just the way it is in this league. So I think it takes every year there's some linebacker that expects to get more and doesn't get it. And in Sankey's case, I just don't think he was going to be willing to settle for what was going to be, a low 100,000s deal. I think Saskatchewan did offer him more than that, but I don't think anybody else was going to even get to 120. So, yes, it's less money to go down and play in the league that he's in now, but it's a much shorter season. And then it dovetails with the NFL. And I think at this stage it's probably a long shot for Sankey. But, we find this all the time, that there are players that get cut in the CFL every year that wind up making their way onto an NFL roster when guys get hurt. And, availability matters. So if you're in the right place at the right time as far as the NFL is concerned, and a team needs somebody to be the 50th guy in the roster and go down and cover kicks, and you happen to be that guy, you can make a pretty reasonable living doing that for a few weeks.
Now, where we're at in this place and time, end of February here, 2023, and USFL gearing up, they've completed season one, XFL in the midst. Having these two other leagues and talent, whatever, but how do you view the landscape, where we were a year ago, where this was a lot of hypotheticals?
Well, I think that it's kind of where we were, right? Like it's still hypothetical, right, Reed? Because for me, it's not real till we get to year 3, right? So right now, is it going to have an effect on the CFL? It will for sure, right? Because you're going to get a certain number of players that say, this is the football I know, see, and understand, and I can play it in America, which I know, see, and understand, right? Because most Americans have no idea that Canada exists, right? So it'll affect it from that standpoint. But, we'll see what it looks like a few years down the road and see which of these two leagues is going to come out sustainable. And as far as the leagues themselves, it's not that different than what I saw a couple of years ago, right? So I want to see which of these leagues survives, because I do think one will. And I want to see what the quality of play in that league looks like in year 3. The one thing I always love about these leagues, I just love the innovation, right? From being able to get a microphone right inside the huddle when a play is being called, listen to an offensive coordinator as a play is being called. Maybe that's because I'm a 30+ year coach and I'm a bit of a geek to listen to this kind of verbiage. So I like it. But whether it's rules innovation, television innovation, I think all of that is a positive. And if the CFL or the NFL can get a view of some of these things and watch it being test drived in the XFL now and in a couple of months in the USFL, I think that's just good for football, right? So, will it have a negative effect on the CFL? Sure, but on the overall sport and on the overall ecosystem, I'm not seeing that. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, well, I think competition, breeds kind of, you got to bargain between, and like you said, McLeod Bethel-Thompson having another option. Like, there's always going to be these choice scenarios where, and that's, I was telling people, I'm like, they're not paying McLeod what he was going to get paid. Like, the USFL didn't just decide now here after 2 years of being really stringent with player contracts. Yeah, we're going to pay McLeod, $300,000 to come in here. Like, I just don't see that happen. But, it at least gives people another option there.
Yeah, that's a good thing, right? I mean, and I think for the CFL, like, there's just so many football players, right? So right now, it doesn't affect what you're seeing today, because the players that have been in the CFL and have earned starters money, those guys are generally in their late 20s. So the NFL is in the rearview mirror for them. So they know what a good league this is and how much money they can make here. So they don't want to go to the USFL and the XFL in most cases, right? The guys that are going into those leagues are younger, and the NFL dream is still there, right? So they go and they think we can play for a shorter period of time, make whatever money, stay active, and then be available if there's an opportunity in the NFL, right? So now what it does affect the CFL with is it affects the entry point, right? Because now you're not going to get as many people at your tryout camps and as many people that are readily available to sign immediately that are going to come to training camp as rookies, and that might affect you 3 years down the road. But as far as football players are concerned, I think it's a really good thing. To be honest, I think that one of the challenging things is I think from a Canadian standpoint, and look, for the CFL, it's good that these guys can't just go to the USFL and the XFL. They're going to stay in Canada in most cases. But I'm sure that if it was easy for a Canadian college player to go play in one of these two leagues, they'd take a long, hard look at it. But they can't because they need a work visa. And there's a cost associated to getting one of those visas. I know, I've been through it. So what happens is like Herji Mayala, I think, is just signed with a USFL or an XFL team, and he's a dual citizen that already had his visa in place, right? So he's a rarity, whereas he's Canadian. So most people that are up here that have that option can't go down and explore it because those leagues aren't going to spend the money and time and resources to get a visa for a Canadian player. They've got to do that on their own, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense for most of them to do that. I think you saw that with Liam Dobson. I think he signed a deal with one of the teams there in the USFL, and they weren't able to get him a visa, so he wound up coming back, right? So, that's at least the CFL can kind of keep those players. But as far as players are concerned, to have more options, I think is a great thing. I think what the league also up here needs to be concerned about is the brain drain of coaching talent that potentially now has an option, right? And if they decide they want to get their visas figured out and do all of that, you might lose some pretty good coaches, right? And that's as big of a concern as well in my mind.
Yeah, no, we just had Coach Elizondo on here. Time isn't nebulous right now. I think 2 weeks ago here previewing, but he's got to go. OC job working with Hines Ward here for I would say the premier franchise of this new XFL. Named after the Rocks. I mean, he's going from head coach up there, and he certainly had his qualms with his time in Edmonton as well.
Yeah. Yeah, but just that type of person that just has that option now, right? And spent some time with Coach Tressman and in I think it was Tampa that he was in before, and now to have this option, I think it's a good thing, right? People come up here and it's a good league and it's a good lifestyle, right? Like coaching in the U.S. is hard. Now you get paid for it, but it's hard. When I coached and I was younger, and I thought, my dream job would have been to be a Division I head coach or to be a Division I offensive coordinator. Those guys, when they recruit, my goodness, now they got to re-recruit all these guys to keep them in because of the portal and the NIL. And, in the NFL, you go right from the season into combine season and draft prep season and, all these things. Like, it's a never-ending cycle and rat race, and you absolutely get compensated well. But certainly coaching up here can afford you a better lifestyle, right? Because you get more time. And certainly the USFL and the XFL can afford you a pretty good lifestyle as well, just in terms of time and being able to spend time with your family.
Last question from McLeod. Do you realistically see him getting back into the NFL? I know that was part of, is that 34?
Yeah, it's hard, right? So Josh Johnson is the example, right? And, doing what he did with San Francisco, and what has he been through 14 different American football stops, and eventually wound up playing in a playoff game for San Francisco, which is crazy. And that really is needle in a haystack stuff. But 64 quarterbacks started games in the NFL last year. So McLeod was contacted by some teams, and there were 3 teams that were interested in bringing him in. None of them were going to offer him any guarantees, but a couple of them did say, look, be ready, right? And so if he gets through this, with the team he's going to play for in the USFL, and all of a sudden he's available, he could get a call, and quite frankly, he could get a call to come back to the CFL too, right? Somebody gets hurt in whatever market, and all of a sudden he's out there. Don't be shocked if in September he gets a call and decides to come back up here for a period of time. So I think all those things are on the table. I think it's a real long shot that he winds up in the NFL. But you know what? It's his long shot, and it's up to him to take. And I'm not here to pass judgment. He's a good guy, and I hope it works out for him the way he wants it to work out.
In terms of, and I do have some CFL stuff because it's crazy world right now that we're living in here before we go. In terms of, we were talking before when I was going to have you come on, you said, you don't want to talk too much XFL, have not been watching a lot of this current. See, to me, that says more than anything, right? That you're not and that's fine. You have many different things you cover, like where the XFL
It's not a shot. Like, it's
just, I know.
Please understand that when I say that, I don't view it as beneath me. It's not a shot. I think these are great. And if my family's all out of the house and I got nothing to do for 15 minutes, I'll flick it on and I'll find a way to, I'll be entertained. But it's, I just, as you said, lots going on in my world. So I got to pick and choose.
Yeah, but I mean, that's my point. Is it speaks to where that is in the pecking order, and we've seen viewership not explosive and attendance, everything else. Like, has the XFL even permeated anything that's going on in your world right now? Here we're approaching week 3.
Nope. I mean, I watched I think 10 minutes of the fourth quarter of that Seattle St. Louis game, and I knew it was on because I'd seen some stuff on social, but I couldn't find it. And, because I don't have ESPN Plus, so I didn't have the web version. And then I had to search through all these channels to find out. I think it was either you or Mike Mitchell told me that it was on FX. And then I found FX and turned it on. So, I think distribution matters, right? And, as the Pac-12 is going through their television negotiations, keep in mind distribution matters as much, if not more so than actual dollars, right? So it's always a fine line for leagues to walk and make sure that they can get both sides of that met. But no, I mean, other than the fact that a couple of the players that I would be covering during CFL free agency considered spring options, like you mentioned, McLeod and Sankey and a couple of others, it really hasn't affected my world at all. But if I get a chance, I will watch, because you know me, I love football. So I'll go watch a high school spring practice down the corner if it's convenient.
Can we talk some CFL stuff here? Another one that kind of shook me, and then I've been having conversations. Dane Evans to America's CFL team, the BC Lions. I thought Vernon is the starter here, and we've lost Nathan Rourke and everything else. Like, how did that? Talk me through that, because I'm very perplexed.
Yeah, I think he wanted to come to BC right from the get-go, and there was a lot of speculation about going to Toronto and going to some other places, and I think those did have some interest, but I think that he took a real shining to Jordan McSimic, BC's offensive coordinator, and saw what he did with the offense that Nathan Rourke was running, and felt that he could benefit from being involved in that, right? And Vernon is the starter, right? He's going to be the starter. The salaries are as such, and I think the Evans to BC option was there for the Lions about a month ago, and they weren't interested at that time. I think the asking price was high, both in terms of what Hamilton would have wanted, but also in terms of what Dane would have wanted, right, in terms of a contract restructure. And then as time went, the asking price on both ends came down, and BC said, you know what, we could bring him into our quarterback room. If you know Dane, he's a positive guy. He's not going to be toxic or cancerous if he's the backup or anything like that. That's just not how he is. Coach's kid, loves the game, wants to play. And I think a lot of quarterbacks go through this up here where, the one thing with the CFL we don't do well right now is we don't properly develop quarterbacks, right? So you look at Bo Levi Mitchell. When Bo came in out of Eastern Washington, I think the Stamps knew that by year 3, this is going to be our starter. And they created a pathway for him to get that opportunity, including what they did with the other jobs. And everybody else, someone's got to get hurt, right? Like, you've just got to perform really well in the preseason, and someone's got to get hurt, and we'll see if it works out for you. And then when it does work out for those guys, Nick Arbuckle being one when Bo got hurt, Dane Evans being another, sometimes the step isn't always linear, right? And sometimes the next step doesn't work out, right? Vernon Adams had a number of stops before he hit in Montreal with Kahari. And then, then all of a sudden, things changed in that situation, and he had to take a bit of a step back. So I think for, even a guy like Anthony Calvillo, who set all those records, right? He came into Vegas when Vegas was in the CFL and had to take a step back before he got the right opportunity in Montreal, where he eventually became a Hall of Famer. So I think Dane realizes that maybe I need to do that and kind of rebuild where I'm at in my career and get into the right situation. And, hopefully for Vernon, things go well. And if it doesn't, Dane's there. He's an experienced backup. He'll get another opportunity, right? And, whether you're Nick Arbuckle and you're now doing that in behind Jeremiah Masoli, sometimes you need to go through that for a little bit. And I think that's where Dane is right now.
Yeah, it spoke to me. There wasn't a super hot market right now for Dane. It was like a conditional draft pick, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was more a case of, I think Toronto wanted him, but Hamilton wasn't willing to let him go to Toronto easily, right? So, they made the arrangement for him to come to BC, and I think there's an unwritten understanding that BC is not going to turn around and flip him to the East tomorrow, right? I mean, who knows what happens in another year, but I'd be surprised if you saw Dane Evans playing for an Eastern team in 2023. So, it just kind of happened that way. I wouldn't say that there was no market, but things do get limited, right? I mean, when you have a 9-team league and you're playing musical chairs, there's only so many spots, right? So once, Cody Fajardo took the opportunity in Montreal when Trevor Harris shook loose there, and then he wound up in Saskatchewan, it really came down to, do you compete with Chad Kelly in Toronto, or what's the best backup spot, right? So BC offered him a good spot there. Contract-wise, it's the same as what Dom Davis is making, so the club can afford to keep all three of them on the roster if needed.
In terms of Sway Kelly, I think it says he's called. Would you take Chad in Toronto with all those pieces right now, or everything that Hamilton's had to do to get Bo Levi?
Oh, good question. I think there's good pieces on both teams, right? I mean, Hamilton did a good job rebuilding. I think that was the commitment they made to Bo, that we're going to put some pieces around you, right? So they did that with a offensive tackle coming off a career year in Joel Figueroa, and an ascending running back in James Butler, and they added one to the receiving core, and when you look at defensively, getting some other pieces back there and being able to upgrade, they certainly were the roster that was most turned over and probably needed that, right? So I think Bo's in a good spot there, but Toronto was able to have some continuity, and that mattered off a Grey Cup championship season. And they were also able to add some good pieces as well on both sides of the ball, just picking up Jordan Williams from BC to go play linebacker, and Darius Pickett. And there's a couple guys there that I think are going to be really good adds. So I think that, every year we go into this, Reed, and we say the East is going to catch up. This is the year the East is going to catch up to the West. And then we go through the first 2 months and it's just a disaster. And the West has won every cross-divisional game, right? But I absolutely think that Hamilton and Toronto can play with any team in the West this year. I think Ottawa is going to be better, assuming the quarterback situation is healthy, right? With Jeremiah, they'll be better. And, we'll see where Montreal is, right? They got to get that figured out, just because of the timing of what happened with ownership around free agency and losing Trevor Harris and losing Geno Lewis and a couple of pieces there. So we'll see. I can't tell you today that they'll be better, but I don't think they'll be a bad football team. But the East will be better for sure.
Yeah, that was kind of my last question, was what is going on? Montreal is kind of my team of the East, and their media people are really good with me. And we've had people on it just seems like kind of a dumpster fire there right now.
It's not as bad as you think, and I'll say that. So it was headed that way, towards dumpster fire territory, and certainly it cost them Trevor Harris. But I don't think the Alouettes were going to pay Geno Lewis $320,000 a year anyway, right? As the market heated up and got to that point, and that's what Edmonton got him for. I don't know that Montreal gets to that number. And to be honest, I'm not, as much as I love Geno Lewis as a player, I just don't think those are sustainable numbers for non-quarterbacks in this league. That's just my opinion, not a shot at the player at all. So they might have lost that player anyway, right? But Danny Machocha did a pretty good job of rising from the ashes and getting enough good pieces around, keeping enough pieces, convincing them they needed to be there. I don't think there was a massive drain of key players, right? Trevor Harris is a big one. Geno, again, put the context around that properly. And now they're in a period of exclusive negotiation where they're going to get sold pretty quick, right? I wasn't surprised when the league took it over, right? Like, I was kind of the one guy early on, I think during Super Bowl week, to report that the league was in negotiations with other buyers. And, I said on radio at that time that I don't know if we're going to be able to get an A to B transaction from Stern and the estate right to a new owner. It might need the league to broker it and hang on to it for a small period of time. And that's what they're doing. And it'll be in a better place, because from everything I understand, the new owners are well-financed, are willing to put money in on the front end, which previous groups haven't necessarily done or been willing to do. And they're local. So I think it's going to be a good situation in Montreal.
And you think that's coming sooner than later?
Yeah, I would be surprised if it didn't happen this month, to be quite honest. I think we're nearing the end of that process.
So not today, in March, you're saying?
Sorry, what's the date today? The 28th?
Yeah.
So yeah, in March. In March. I would imagine it's a case of weeks, not months.
Okay, that's good. And then last thing here, where are we getting our American CFL TV deal?
Where?
What is going with that?
I don't know. I don't know. Naylor and I divide things up, so he's got that on his to-do list. But certainly ESPN is going to be a part of it. just because of TSN's relationship with ESPN. Streaming is going to be a part of it, and we'll see where they all land. But my understanding is there actually is going to be a little bit in the way of dollars coming back to the league. It's not simply a distribution deal, so another step forward.
Awesome. Well, Farhan, I appreciate it coming on here. And it blew up last week. I thought, what the hell is going on here? But it was good. I appreciate you.
Where were you? Because I texted you saying, why can't I watch this game?
We were in Puerto Vallarta, and it was hard enough for me to get on an hour to stream my shows. Dorothy was Dorothy. I mean,
Dorothy's the best. She's the only reason I came on, and she's probably the one who said, answer him. Yeah. Tell him where the game is.
No, I came back from dinner. I'm like, Farhan was looking for the game. So.
Well, truthfully, I was actually disappointed that the crowd wasn't great, because Seattle and St. Louis were the two places in the last go-around where crowds were pretty good, right? And the atmosphere was good. I know my son plays 7-on-7 football for FSP, and we got a thing where, they were offering, the kids tickets to go to the game. And I think Tracy Ford even got a suite for some of the guys to go as well. But just watching a few minutes that I did, I was disappointed, just because when Seattle played the last time a couple of years ago, the crowds were pretty good.
It was we weren't there, but I was told it was very cold. So I was told it was
very cold. Yeah, there was a cold snap. So in fairness, unseasonably cold even for February here in the Northwest.
I did get because I posted, I'm cheering here because we had our balcony cheering the Dragons. I got all these people like, how are you not even at the game? I go, I gotta stay married here. I gotta stay married. What do you want me to do? You want me to come back from Mexico?
You should have done it. You should have had your vacation a week earlier. Like, come on.
I know.
Dorothy would have understood.
Dorothy would have
understood. She's a champ.
Farhan, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much again.
All right, buddy. Anytime.
Well, bonjour. Good morning. We have Cody Fajardo here. Now, Cody, I say this with all sincerity and honesty. I don't think there's a single active CFL player our listeners want to hear more from than you. So I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Well, that's cool to hear. It's you guys are doing some great things and bringing a lot of viewership to the CFL, and so I appreciate things like that, because it's a great league that needs to be expressed how great it is through all media outlets.
Well, it's good. So how is life for you right now? It's been a little chaotic. You have, you said you have your baby sleeping now. How is Cody's life right now?
Great. I feel good going in after signing my contract with Montreal. Feel a lot better than where I was going into free agency. Right. There was a lot of uncertainty, especially around my name and possibilities of being a backup, being a starter. There was just a lot of questions. So I'm extremely happy to be a QB1 again, and got a big chip on my shoulder, and I'm excited about the season. Taking a trip out east and a little bit different. So where I started, in the CFL was out east, and it's a great little 4-team battle till the end, and so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, how frustrating is it? You're trying to play, trying to do what you need to do. You have all this squawking, all these talking heads everywhere. How is it? How difficult is it to stay focused?
I think the hard part is sometimes there's a narrative put out there, and you want to do whatever you can to change that narrative, or just be like, hey, that's not real. Sometimes, and it's unfortunate. I think nowadays it's more about how fast you can get the information out, not really how accurate it is. And it sucks as an athlete, because sometimes the information's accurate, sometimes it's not, and you're just sitting there. And if you comment on it as an athlete, everyone looks at you and says, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. So sometimes you just got to let things roll off the chest and move on. And so throughout the entire off season, it was a little bit difficult, but I'm extremely excited where I'm at and what Coach Moss and Danny Mack have done with this Montreal team, especially having their hands tied behind their backs for majority of the free agency. I think they've put together a very competitive roster on paper, and that's all we can say right now until we go out there and actually practice and perform in games. But I'm extremely excited to be a part of this organization.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we came into this and covering, we're newbies to covering this whole CFL world, and it's amazing to me how prevalent your name in a good way is, just across the league as one of the main guys. And there's just always a lot of attention around you. I just, it's crazy to me as someone that seems as affable and likable and hardworking. There's just always seems to be someone saying something about you. I've just never understood that.
Yeah, I'm a big believer, and I think a lot of people know that about me. If Jesus Christ got crucified, it only makes sense for people are entitled to their own opinions, and that's something I think that's so great about where we live is our freedom of speech, and so there's nothing wrong with it. And sometimes, yeah, maybe strikes a chord here or there, but everyone's entitled to their own opinions. So for me, just to be pissed about every little thing, it just would affect my day to day too much. So um, I know early on in my Rough Rider career, I cared a lot about everybody and pleasing everybody, and I found that was just energy wise, it was draining. It was draining just to keep everybody, and I was focused more on the people who didn't like me, and I was willing to do anything I could to make people like me, as opposed to the really solid foundation of the core people who just care about me as a person, not so much a football player, but as a person. And so you can't please them all, and I found that out the hard way because I truly tried. But moving forward, there's a lot of people that have backed me my entire career, and now being a Rough Rider quarterback, it comes with a lot of positivities, but it comes with some negativities. Just under scrutiny, there's a microscope under you as the Rough Rider quarterback, and that's what professional football should be about, though, and that's what they can offer that some teams can't. It gives you that true professional feel where you're an A1 celebrity when you play quarterback for the Saskatchewan Rough Riders, and you truly feel that way. And it makes you feel like that professional quarterback, and you get a glimpse of that NFL lifestyle, right? Where you can't go to the grocery store, you can't go out. Those guys make millions and millions and millions of dollars. So they have people do their groceries for them, or they have people run their errands for them. So I can't get away from that. Yeah, it's definitely a huge learning curve. I learned a lot. I don't know anything else other than being the Rough Riders starting quarterback. I've been a backup in this league and other places. So I'm excited to compare the two and go to Montreal and be their starting quarterback and kind of see the difference, because all I know is being the starting quarterback for the Rough Riders.
Talk about, you said about, support system you've had, and obviously your family, and, moving your family across the country, and just the challenges that go along with that. Because I think people, and this goes across football and sports in general. Oh, they're trading, or this is going on. This is a whole lifestyle change for you, and uprooting and everything. What is that like?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Honestly, it's difficult, especially when you have a little one like myself, and a lot of guys in the league have kids. And some families go up to Canada with them. Some stay home. My wife has a job here, so she works here. She'll come up to a handful of games and be up for 2 or 3 days. But we try not to go longer than 6 weeks apart from each other. So we'll find a time within those 6 weeks, given 3 bye weeks and some home games here and there. We're able to make it work. But since my wife and I have started really dating, we had a couple years in college, but once I got out of college, it's been all long distance, and you learn a lot about your partner. You learn a lot about your relationship doing long distance, and it can be difficult at times. And so free agency comes around, and you think it's all football based, but a lot of it has to do with your family as well. Like you talked about, moving my family out east. That's big for us. And one thing that was difficult about playing in Saskatchewan was flying into the Regina airport, especially from where we're at in Reno, Nevada. 2 small airports. It would take my wife about 4 flights, 14-hour trip to get there, right? And so that's just really exhausting on her. And now having a little one, it'd be exhausting on him. So for us, going to Montreal and being in a little bit of a bigger airport, she can get there in 2 flights minimum, or minimum. So some of them are direct flights. Some of them she goes San Francisco right to it. So it's something you got to think about when you get into free agency. Obviously, understanding the situation of being able to play football was number one on my list. I wanted to not have to hold a clipboard for 6-7 weeks and then get my opportunity, because I got this chip on my shoulder the way that the season ended last year, and I wanted to hit the ground running. I know what the COVID year did to me after 2019. I came off a great season, and taking that whole year off, it just felt like I had to restart. And so being able to step right back into that QB1 role and use the last 2 years as momentum, and that experience as momentum for me, I'm really excited about that, not having to go and be a backup and compete and then start back over again, whether that's week 1, week 6, week 9, you never know in the CFL.
Yeah, it seems like competition just drives you, is so deep in your bones, right? And obviously you have your love for your family and everything, but it just seems like Sometime in the CFL you get okay. We're kind of you drive to be you're an alpha right athlete and you're an alpha personality in terms of wanting to lead this team. It's exciting to see you, like you said, kind of back in that same position now on the East.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you want. You want the opportunity to right your wrongs. And last year I didn't play my best, and I'll be the first to tell everybody that. And looking at the stats. I was competitive in some areas. In some areas, I need to be better at not turning the ball over as much, scoring when we're in the red zone. I felt like I didn't take as many chances as I wish I would have, and we ended up settling for field goals. So some things that I've learned about myself on the tape, but there's no one to point a finger at about last year other than myself. You miss the playoffs, and I take a lot of that heat for missing the playoffs because you are the quarterback. You are the highest paid player on the team. You should be able to pull your team to a playoff a year. And so I was unable to do that last year. And so a fresh start in Montreal, back with Coach Moss, and we know each other really well. We got a great working relationship, a great relationship off the field. We care a lot about each other. And so really excited just about a fresh start. And a lot of people say, to get where you want to go, sometimes you got to make that change that you're afraid to do. Sometimes when you don't make that change, you're kind of settle and you're about in that status quo, right? But you make that change, it could be better, it could be worse. But if you really want to get to that better spot, you got to make a change. And I was almost forced out, so it was almost a forced change for me. But a change is a good thing for me, in my opinion, and for my family, and just a fresh start, like I talked about.
Well, you said, I mean, it's, whether it's your decision, anyone, sometimes it's just, relationship sour. Now you can go and be with Coach over there. Are you excited? I saw the video, you learning to speak French and kind of all of that, really embracing, which is funny, but I think it's so like just who you are is like you dive head in 100%, right? Like you are fully committed to this. What's it been like kind of transitioning now?
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's thanks for the kind words. I don't know how long I get to play this wonderful sport, football, especially professionally. So to be able to dive in 100%, that's what I give. And the same goes to my play on the field. And I talk about it all the time when people tell me I should slide more. It's, I don't know when my last play is going to be. And so if I slid and didn't get the first down and we punted and then I don't get to ever play a football game again because, an injury or something happens, I would regret that. So I play every down like it's my last because I'm very fortunate enough to be going into my 9th year in the CFL or professional football. And that's a long time, but I hope there's many more years after this. But to tell you the truth, I just want to dive full in, embrace the fans. I've always been excited about Montreal and going to Montreal and playing there. And so to be a part of that and to run out of the cage for the first time, I think it's going to be an exciting time. And like I've said over and over this offseason, a lot of people are pegging it as a rebuild year, and it's absolutely not that. I think we have the team to make a deep run into the playoffs and to shock some teams. And, honestly, I hope that teams take us for granted or take it easy on us early on so we can turn some heads. We're building a lot of optimism around the team with a new ownership, hopefully, a new head coach, a new franchise quarterback. So I think that optimism comes with winning football games. You win football games early, you'll start seeing the fans fill up the stadium and make it hard on opposing teams. And so playing at Mosaic, I realized what a huge asset a great crowd can be. And they created a lot of procedure penalties, offside penalties, delay games. They created a lot. And so that gives your team a huge bonus. So I would love to do anything we can to pack our stadium to make it just as hard on opposing teams to come in and play for us.
Now, something we've noticed, and Montreal kind of is my team of the East, right? I have BC Lions. That's my West Coast team. I call them America's CFL team, but maybe Montreal could be, French America, whatever. The air horns. This could end this interview right now. Are you pro Montreal air horn or con Montreal air horn?
I like it. It's got that soccer feel to it, right? In soccer you kind of have that. My wife's a college soccer player. So watching the World Cup, you hear the same stuff, right? And so that's one of the biggest stages as well. Knowing as an athlete that's gone against it and how much it can affect you, I want them to bring the air horns out as much as possible now that I'm a part of it. Obviously not when we're on offense, but when the other team's on offense, yeah, because it's one of those things that it can just throw you off. And if it throws you off for one play, that's all we need. that advantage for one play, because, in a course of a game, you run about 60 to 65 plays, but usually it comes down to 3 to 5 plays. And if you could throw somebody off for that one play, that swings it in our advantage. By all means, bring as many air horns as you can. I know that there's a lot of fans out there and a lot of players that dislike it, but being a part of it now, I'm embracing it, and I'm calling for more air horns.
That's good. I got a couple more here. I'll let you go. I promise. I appreciate your time. You talked about, not viewing Montreal as a rebuild year. You're really excited. Obviously, we're still going through signings and free agency, all that kind of stuff. Who are you excited to see, and what excites you about the team on the field that, kind of thus far that exists?
Yeah, Greg Ellingson's probably one of the persons I'm most excited about, because we've been in the league together for a while now, but we've never crossed paths on the same team. We've always been competitors. We've always been rivals. So to be able to be on the same roster, that's exciting for me. And he's done a lot of great things in this league. And when he's healthy, he's one of the best receivers in this league. So really excited about that. Excited about our two stud Canadian receivers, Keon and Philpott. Those guys, I've heard nothing but great things about them and their speed. And then Reggie's coming off an injury, but from what I've heard from other players around the league, he could be a top 3 wide receiver in this league, given the opportunity. So I think receiver-wise, I'm spoiled and I'm excited to hit the ground running with those guys. But to tell you the truth, our 3-headed monster running backs in our backfield is going to be the difference in a lot of football games. Being able to establish a run will allow us to throw the ball over the top, get some more man coverage. Stanback's been playing at a top level for year after year after year, and excited for him to be healthy. And then obviously the other two studs, that Fletch and Antwi, those guys are just change of pace backs, can be dynamic out of the backfield, can catch the ball out of the backfield. Guys who have stepped into significant roles and have played really well. So it's hard because there's one football, and I just named a lot of talented football players. And if I could, I cut it into 7 different parts and give everyone a piece. I would love to, but I think that's what's going to make us so dynamic, is we got a lot of selfless players that are willing to do whatever it takes to win football games. And if their number's called, they're going to be willing and ready to be that guy. And so at any point in the season, any one of those guys can take over a game. And I think that's what's exciting, is as a defense, you can't just focus in on one guy, because we have 5, 6, 7 guys that can take over a game. And, it might be one guy one week and it might be another guy the next week. But those guys, after talking with them and feeling them out, if they feel like, if they're not getting the ball, it's not like, hey, come on, Cody, throw me the ball. It's, all right, it's Greg's turn today, or, it's Stanback's turn today. And we just want to win football games. And I think when you have that mentality, you win a lot more football games than you lose. And a lot of games come down to the end. And when you have selfless play, I think you can win a lot of football games late. And that's what the CFL, as you know, and the XFL has kind of proven it the last couple weeks, is a lot of games are coming down to the wire, right? And finishing in the last 4 or 5 minutes. And that's what makes football such an exciting game, because you never know, and you have to play all 4 quarters. You can't just play the first 3.
No, the cool thing, and we've interviewed a bunch of the Montreal players over the years, and I think we had Stanback on preseason last year. Just something about the CFL and the players buying in, right? And just like we're all in, we're committed. Like once you kind of, like you said, we cover all these different leagues. Like once you know what the CFL offers, and you can buy into that. What is it about the CFL that you love the most, and that keeps you excited to come back year after year?
Well, personally, it was the only league that gave me an opportunity, and that is what helps me go all in. There's other leagues now, but the CFL was really the only one there. When I got cut from the Oakland Raiders, I had a handful of tryouts in the NFL, never stuck anywhere, and the CFL was there for me and gave me an opportunity to play professional football and finally get to where I'm at, where I'm actually playing games and starting and being a franchise guy, right? So I owe a lot to the CFL, but to tell you the truth about the football aspect of it, it's just how fast-paced it is. Every American that follows me and that has watched CFL because, they're following me has told me how much more exciting the game is than the NFL because of how quick it is. And, every punt, there's a punt return, and there's a lot of handful things, the last 3 minutes of the game. They always want to talk about the last 3 minutes, how teams can score multiple times with 3 minutes. And, you look at the NFL, and at the 2-minute warning, if you have the lead, you can take 3 knees and it's over. You can't do that in the CFL. And I think that's what excites fans from turning it off, right? You could be down, 10, 14 points with 3 minutes left, and you're not turning the game off because there's a possibility that team can come back. And I've seen it. I've been a part of it. And so that's what excites me about the CFL game. The 20-second play clock is great, in my opinion. It makes it difficult on quarterbacks and offenses operating, but I think it's great because there's not a lot of standing around and just huddling and talking in the huddle and getting out, seeing the defense and checking into the perfect play, right? There's a lot of times in the CFL where you run a play that is not good against that defense, but there's nothing you can do about it. So I think it makes tougher on quarterbacks, and I think that's why you see some of the quarterbacks throw a little bit more interceptions than you do in the NFL. It's because we can't get into the perfect play every single time like in the NFL, and so sometimes the ball has to go up into double coverage, or sometimes you have to force a ball here or there. So that's what makes it difficult. But as a quarterback, I know if I had an opportunity to play back in the United States with their rules, I'm such a better quarterback now because of the CFL game and the rules. And I'm excited about McLeod Bethel-Thompson going to the USFL because we'll see how that translates. I think going from 3 downs to 4 downs, you have to find completions with 3 downs. And McLeod giving him an extra down, and he led the CFL in passing last year. He can do some incredible things in the USFL, and so I'm excited to see him do that. But the CFL game has so many great rules that I find it so fascinating.
Yeah, I loved him in McLeod's post, kind of him leaving the Argos. He really romanticized the league, I thought, I think it was on Instagram or posted wherever it was, like just talking about that and how much it's given him. And you said the same thing, gave you a shot and, has allowed you to live this life and see the world, see the country and, raise your family and kind of support everything. It's a cool, it's a cool thing to be able to have for players to have that.
I think you're exactly right. And I wouldn't get to see the beautiful parts Canada has to offer without the CFL, right? There's no way I'm going to Niagara Falls. There's no way I'm going up to Whistler. There's no way I'm going to Montreal if it wasn't for football, right? And so being able to have my family and have those times together, playing in Toronto and having my wife come up, playing in BC, having my wife come up, even Saskatchewan and having my wife come up, right? And now Montreal. And so having my son being a Canadian citizen, a dual passport, right? That's going to open up a lot of doors for him. And so there's just a lot of perks to the CFL game. And there's a lot of beautiful things about Canada that as an American, I would have never had this opportunity if it wasn't for the CFL. And so you're right. To romanticize the CFL is you have to pay your dues without a doubt. You don't make that great of money as a rookie, but that just makes you want to work harder. But now there's multiple leagues, it's going to be a little bit more competitive to sign guys. So maybe there's a little bit of increase in pay. I would say the hardest thing for Americans right now is just being paid in Canadian dollars, right? Like if you look at the number, it's very competitive. 70,000 is our minimum, very competitive with other leagues. But when you transfer it over in U.S. money, it drops significantly, right? You lose 25% just off the top. And that's as the 10-year average at 0.75 on the exchange rate. So a lot of guys don't realize that until they get up there. But you realize what I tell them is it's 6 months of work, right? Some leagues you have to be year round. It's 6 months of work. You can get a job in the off season and work 6 months. So to make that kind of money in 6 months is a privilege. And then also you just got to pay your dues because everybody's done it. Everyone's done their 2 years. Some have done 3 years on their rookie deal. And if you believe in yourself and willing to bet on yourself, you can get to a good payday that can pay the bills and you can live comfortably. And so you just got to work hard and you got to be given that opportunity. And that's what's so hard about professional sports is there's so much talent, but the opportunity, I've seen so many guys go by the wayside because they never got their opportunity, right? They just sat on a roster, the guy in front of them never went down, never got to play, and they're out of the league in 2 years. And it's unfortunate. And so you really feel the blessings of an opportunity, whether any way you can get it, because they don't come, too much.
Well, Cody, I really appreciate your time today. I appreciate the Alouettes setting this up. Before we go, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I have to utilize this opportunity. Couple years ago, I think we tweeted something, Icky 3 Down had an article out about you, not using cuss words or something, using chicken McNuggets. I commented on something and we got caught in one of the infamous Cody Twitter bans. And we are blocked. the Markcast is blocked on Twitter. This has been part of our show now for the last couple of years, and we've had shenanigans on the show. So I wanted to apologize. If there was ever a chance to maybe get back in your good graces here, we're going to share this episode this week, but it would really mean a lot if we could get back on the other side of that Cody Fajardo Twitter ban.
Honestly, I unblocked you guys. You guys haven't. If you haven't checked recently, you guys aren't blocked.
Oh, good. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know why. Honestly,
okay.
Maybe you could tell me. But I guess I got a strong, powerful blocking. If you're blocked by me, people hate that. It's just sometimes, like I said, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, just like I'm entitled to block whoever I want. And if I don't want to read what you have to say, I don't have to read what you have to say, right? So, but doing this interview with you guys and just understanding you and seeing what you guys have said about me over the years, there's been a lot more positive than there has been negative, right? And sometimes, like you said, sometimes you get caught up in this article and then I go on this, I don't want to see what this guy say, see what this guy. And so you're kind of a casualty just by being associated with it. But you guys do, like I said early on in the interview, you guys do a lot of great things for the league and bring a lot of awareness, a lot of eyeballs to this league. And so to be an advocate of that and to be an ally to you guys as well, I think we're having a great working relationship. Definitely starts today. Let's start it out. So you guys aren't blocked anymore, and I'm excited to see everything down the stretch. And hopefully we can get on this. I can get on your guys' show again, and we can continue to talk ball.
Well, Cody, it's a new beginning for you. It's a new beginning for us. It's a new beginning for everybody. Viva the Alouettes. I don't know. I took French many years ago. Is that the plural, feminine, or I don't really know how that goes, but I really appreciate your time. I do think you are just a gem of a person and just with the league and everything. And I know you deal with a lot of stuff. So really appreciate it and the extended time today. So thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's good to be on. And like I said, thanks for everything you guys do for the league and for all leagues, really. Bring a lot of eyeballs to the smaller leagues that need it.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Huge special thanks to all of our guests today coming on the show. Tom Luginbill, getting ready for the weekend's games and, navigating coaching calls and kind of everything else he had to do to prepare for that. Really appreciate Tom taking the time to sit down. Extended talk with Tom means a lot. Mark Drumheller coming on late at night, working through his personal schedule to come on, I think 35 minutes with Mark. And then Chris Maathuis as well, talking through, reliving the Cashman field experience. Really appreciate that. And then, like I said, Farhan coming on the show always means a lot. Someone with the stature and, notoriety and just how crazy busy Farhan is. And then all of the people over at the Montreal Alouettes for setting up that interview. Cody for just being all in. Really appreciate that. We get caught up in stuff, and I used to be a lot more brash online, and I've really tried to kind of tone it down here in 2023. But, Cody is one of the nicest people I've ever met, one of the most genuine people in the world, and I have nothing but respect for him. Really appreciate that. Cody had kind of done the research ahead of time coming onto the show. Kind of knew what he was getting into, and I really just thought that was a wonderful experience. Really hope you guys enjoy that. I'm really trying. I will say, all the bridges now have been rebuilt, save for 3 Down Nation. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I really did send a heartfelt, genuine apology to Justin Dunk. Remember, I kind of accosted him on the streets of Regina back during the Grey Cup. So I have put positive energy out to that. But I think now, Cody, we're good. Arash, we've always been good. I mean, I know that there was all the dual stuff, but I gave Arash a hug back up in Regina when I saw him. So I think in terms of CFL media, I think that's it. Let me know. Are there any other longstanding feuds? But I have reached out to Justin Dunk, did not hear back, but I wrote a lengthy, heartfelt email to him. So if you're listening to this, maybe, hey, Justin, what's going on? I thought Reed reached out to you. I really sincere with that, but really appreciate everybody, all of that stuff. Now, the real reason you guys are sticking around, if you're still here at the 2.5 hour mark, however long this is, at this point, we are giving away, lo and behold, the Bryan Scott football. Now, don't forget, 3,500 subscribers. We are giving away the championship game tickets to either the XFL or the USFL. So stay subscribed. Lots more stuff coming. Got the thing scrolling, all that kind of stuff. But 2 tickets to that. I also have everything booked for the Alamo trip. I know lots of people very excited to come to San Antonio for the XFL championship game. I want to, in a couple of weeks here, I'm going to get a head count because I'm going to see if we can kind of make an appointment there with the Alamo, because we are leading the Alamo tour. Could be a big, maybe you don't care about the XFL championship game, but we're going through the Alamo. Read the Markcast. We're going to go through. I think John Vogel's going to be there. I know Anthony Miller, everybody else. So buy your tickets, get your plane tickets, hotel. I'm partying on the Riverwalk. If there's enough people, I might even come in on Thursday if there's enough people that are going to be partying. So, let me know. Right now, I'm going to be there Friday to Sunday, but if you want to come hang out Thursday, I could always move my flight up. Big time giveaway. This has been a long time coming. I had like 25, 30 people put their names in here to that. And then we have a few less for the jerseys just because they were more specific size. So we'll give away the ball in a minute. For the Generals jersey, send me an email, the Markcast podcast at gmail.com. That is the only way that you are going to be able to get into this. Send me, read, I won the Generals jersey. This goes for all of them. Put these all in the random thing. Username, Act My Age. Act My Age. You are getting the Spring League Generals jersey. I have it over there. You know what it looks like. Generals jersey, going to Act My Age. Username, Act My Age. 3 Blues jerseys going out today. We have Denzel with 2 L's, Denzell. JC Straulin, Straulin, and then Jared 9962. So those are the 3. You got your 3 Blues jerseys coming your way. You're going to get those. And now grand prize. I was so excited to see this user's name. This is someone that's very passionate online. I see tweet a lot of stuff. I see, supportive of the show, always commenting. I don't, the people that are going to submit to this are always going to be the most passionate, but I like getting someone that I see really active on here. It means a lot because this is coming out of my pocket. I mailed this to Brian and I paid for Brian to send it back, and, I'm buying the football and all that stuff. Username, I think your name is Chris. Aviation Junkie, you're getting the ball. If you listen to this. Now, here's the thing. This is a exploding offer. Everybody that won prizes this week. If you do not send me an email by the time I record next week, you forfeit your prize and we're going to give it to someone else. So those are the winners. Make sure you check back in on Monday. Andy Murray and I will be back as always with our, Monday morning coffee, drive time talk. What did we learn? XFL 2023 week 3. And then, like I said, I should have a big show next week as well. I think Mike Mitchell and then my CFL guest. Everything else, thank you guys so much. Please enjoy. Get us up to 3,500. We're like 900 away. We've crossed 100, whatever, plus since the last time we did the giveaway. So thank you guys all so much again. We'll see you next time.